bespoke radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
I need your help to get to the year 1985.
You're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
What up, what up? It's Thursday. This is Fade to Black. Bespoke radio for the masses. Today is Thursday, November 5th. 310 days in the new year, 55 days left. For KJCR and the Game Changer Network and KGRA The Planet, I'm your oh so humble host, Jimmy Church. And tonight, we have very special guest Doug Taylor and the magnificent civilization of Atlantis. Yeah, I got sick earlier this week, and we had to push Douglas back to tonight. He was very gracious. It's going to be a good show. Buckle up, get ready. Fired up. Man, it's Thursday night. You know, and Thursday night is always great because it's Fader night. We're taking live calls and all of that. And then tonight, the audience gets blessed with Douglas Taylor. All right, let's do this. We got so much to talk about tonight. In a really good mood, by the way. And tonight, right before the show, I got to see a rough cut of one of the new TV shows coming up. Just got it. And although I can't say too much, I gotta say, there's some good stuff coming. You guys are going to be very proud, very excited. All right. With that, last night had an earthquake, and I was reminded, I'd forgotten about it, and that just goes to show you how it runs here in Southern California. And the way the valley is set up, now just imagine, just picture this in your mind's eye. You got a set of mountains on your left, set of mountains on your right, I don't know, 20, 30 miles long. And in the middle of those two mountains are a bunch of little towns and cities. And in those towns and cities, you have on one end of the valley, our end of the valley, you have Studio City, Toluca Lake, Burbank, Sylmar. And then as you go west, immediately west, North Hollywood and Van Nuys, and then it just goes west in a big long line. But up against the edge where these two mountain ranges come together, you have Burbank and Sylmar and a bunch of towns on the eastern side of the valley. Okay, and it's just a long stretch. Just imagine, the valley probably is 5 miles, maybe 7 miles tall, right? And then maybe 30 miles long. So just imagine like a rectangle or an oval in that like a disc shape. Okay, that kind of shape. And then there's 20 or 30 little towns in this valley. And even though they call them towns, it's called the valley. Okay, now off to the east. Okay, on the east side of the valley is where we are, Burbank. And last night we had an earthquake that was centered right here. Now, so I was up, I was reading, I was studying and prepping for the show today for Douglas Taylor. And boom, earthquake. And the funny thing about it was at that very moment, I heard, sleep with the bedroom windows open, and I had heard like a truck roll by. So I thought this is how In any other city in America, everybody would have been woken up. It would have been on the news, and everybody would have been talking about it. But this happened last night, and when the truck rolled by, at that very instant, right, the earthquake happened, and it shook. Rita slept through it. Dogs did not get up off of the floor. Nothing, there was no reactions from anybody. And I said to myself, that was a big truck. But it turns out we had an earthquake last night, and it shook pretty good. I mean, it did. It was loud, and even though it was a 3-pointer or whatever, it was apparently very close to the surface because it did shake, and it did make noise, and it was pretty loud. But Rita slept through the whole thing. Didn't bring it up this morning, talk about it at all during the day. I doubt that it even made the news. So there you go. All right. And so it was pretty exciting. It was pretty exciting. I was just watching K28 talk about it and in Twitter. You can follow us on Twitter, by the way, at JChurchRadio. That's what you do. Hashtag F2B. And K28 is tweeting like, he's making it sound like, and I understand, but he's making it sound, I mean, his bed moved. Well, it might have. I mean, it just depends. And where he lives in the valley, I don't know where he lives, but he has told me approximately where he lives. Maybe he was closer to the epicenter or whatever. Maybe his bed did move. Maybe it was a poltergeist. I don't know. All right, let's get this show cracking. I want to remind everybody that a week from tomorrow is Friday the 13th. I will be hosting Coast to Coast, and it's going to be a Friday the 13th special. Going to have open lines, and my guest next week will be Tracy Twyman, and we will be talking about the history of Friday the 13th, the number 13, the Knights Templar, and why bad things go wrong on Friday the 13th for everybody. All right, so that'll be next Friday, Coast to Coast. And then the week after that, well, of course, we have Thanksgiving coming up. And that week, I believe, we have Graham Hancock. We also have, and then I'll be hosting Coast to Coast Thanksgiving weekend. Yes. See, that's what they do. Everybody else gets the night off on Coast, and they have to bring up, the pitcher from the minors, to cover everything because everybody else is out having a good time on Thanksgiving weekend. I'm that guy that's got to come in. And I'll be hosting Coast Friday and Saturday, the 27th and the 28th, I think. Friday and Saturday. So there you go. We got a great month lined up. And then November 30th, the week after that, will be Q&A week right here on Fade to Black. And Monday will be Vahan Setyan. Tuesday, Michael Lee Hill. Wednesday, Leo Zagami. Thursday, some dude named Jimmy Church. And it will be our version of the AMA. Hey, nobody, by the way, I want to see this in Twitter. I want to see this light up in Twitter right now. Is AMA copyrighted? Can we use AMA? Can we use AMA? Is that copyrighted? Does somebody have that trademarked? Check that out. I just want you guys to look that up. I'll be watching Twitter. Let's get to it. Yes, Alien Snowfest. I got an update on Alien Snowfest, and I cannot wait. Cannot wait. You guys have no idea what it's like to be hanging out in Big Bear, California. The Christmas card that you got from your grandparents when you were a kid, and they showed the Santa's village with the lights in the windows and the warmth and the snow and the fun and that is Big Bear. I cannot wait. It is just awesome. Hot chocolate and snow and aliens. That's what I'm talking about. They have a new special. Okay? Now, it is George. It is Jason. It is Linda. It's Stanton. It's Micah. It's Barra. It's Chase. Okay? It's Dolan. It's Marshall Klarfeld. Got to use two names for Marshall. Craig Campobasso and his new film. Okay? And so the new special is $199. If you got in October for $179, good for you. And I know that a lot of you did. But now it's $199. Go do it. It's coming up. It's only two and a half months away. And I cannot wait. All right. Conscious Life Expo. Tonight, Douglas Taylor is going to be on with us, and he will also be speaking at the Conscious Life Expo right after Alien Snowfest, and that will be February 19th through the 22nd. We will have all of that up at jimmychurchradio.com on the future events page, and there will be a link and a banner for Conscious Life as well. So you can go and get your tickets and get set up for that. That is at the LAX Hilton. We have a full weekend booked there too as well, and it's going to be great. So looking forward to seeing everybody. And that's what you ought to do. Make it like a 2-week vacation. Just come out to Southern California, wing it up to Alien Snowfest, come back down, hang out at Venice Beach, go see Hollywood, go over to Universal Studios, go watch the Miami Vice Action Spectacular. You know, go do all of that, and then go to the Conscious Life Expo at the LAX Hilton. You will get everything that California has to offer if you do that. All right, let's go. Let's get this show cracking. I'm fired up. Douglas Taylor is here tonight. Let's get this show cracking today. Canada's finest. That's right. Bryan Adams is 56 years old. Bryan friggin' Adams. And last night we were talking about the greatest metal guitar players, right? And here we are tonight, Bryan Adams. And that's why I love doing this show. You guys get to see the real me. How can you do that? It's because I love music. I do. And Bryan Adams is the man, 56 years old. Also today, Tilda Swinton. Now, check out these birthdays. I got to get all of these in before the commercial. So I'm going to do this quick, but this guy kind of gives you where my mind is at. Tilda Swinton today is 55 years old, and she was amazing in Michael Clayton. If you haven't seen it, go check out but Chronicles of Narnia. But there is a new movie out that she's in. It's called Snowpiercer, about this train in the future that circles the globe. If you haven't seen Snowpiercer, check it out. Tilda Swinton, you may not even recognize her in the movie. She's that good. Tatum O'Neal today is 52. Paper Moon, one of the greatest movies ever made. And The Bad News Bears. Yeah, that was such a controversial movie when it came out. Now we just think it's cute. Tatum O'Neal, 52. Art Garfunkel today is 74. Don't need to say anything there. Robert Patrick is 57. Played Mike Rogers. Yeah. You know, Travis Walton played Mike Rogers in Fire in the Sky. But of course, we know him as T-1000 in The Terminator. Sam Rockwell today is 47. Of course, you know, he stole the show in Galaxy Quest. But there's another movie out. If you haven't seen it with Sam, it's called Moon. It's one of the most disturbing, well-made, well-written, well-shot sci-fi films ever. Sam Rockwell today is 47. Our dead guy's birthday today is Ike Turner. 1931 to 2007, died at the age of 76 right here in Southern California. And I'm not going to go into the Ike Turner story because he was a talented musician, a troubled man, talented, troubled man. And there's just no reason to go there. Happy birthday, Ike. You delivered. Okay? All right. Twitter. Let's light this up before we head to commercial. I have to do this. The best Bryan Adams anthem, because nobody sang a chorus like Bryan Adams. Think about it. He's sitting in the studio. Bryan Adams goes, the chorus needs to be bigger. It's got to be bigger. It's got to be big. It's got to be huge. That's Bryan Adams. And if you think about it, the hits and the choruses and the power that Bryan Adams delivered with, Cuts Like a Knife, the Chorus of Doom. This Time, Chorus of Doom. Run to You, Chorus of Doom. How about Somebody, the Chorus of Doom. Summer of '69, the Chorus of Doom. How about Heaven, the Chorus of Doom. How about It's Only Love with Tina Turner? You remember that? Bryan Adams was just the Chorus of Doom guy. Canada's finest. And I truly mean that. It's his birthday. I want to know, what's the best Bryan Adams anthem? All of us have our little secret little love for Bryan Adams. I don't want to hear it. You know what I'm talking about. If I'm letting it out and I'm being honest right now, so can you. I want to see it. Light it up in Twitter. This is Fade to Black. Tonight, Douglas Taylor is with us. This is Good Mood Thursday. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Douglas Taylor tonight. This is Fade to Black. Bespoke radio for the masses. On the Game Changer Network and KGRA The Planet. I'll be back with all of the news that you know nothing about right after this. Stay with us.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio. What's up, revolutionaries? It's me, Jimmy Church. Do you have an IRS or state tax issue? Well, I did, and I called national tax experts. My problems were fixed, done, fini, and man, I gotta tell you, it was a relief. National Tax Experts are a recognized tax office that services clients in all 50 states. It doesn't matter where you live. Give them a call. I'm telling you, they take the time to understand each and every client's individual financial status as well as their financial goals. And that's exactly what you need, my brother, when you're taking on the evil three-letter. So, seriously, give them a call today at 1-877-909-5444. Again, 1-877-909-5444. Or go check out their website, www.nattaxexperts.com. That's NATTAXEXPERTS.com. Tell them Jimmy sent you.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, The Planet.
Hi, this is Chase Kletsky with Fate Magazine Radio, and you're listening to Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA digital broadcast station, where the Fade or Nots rock.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Massey, and you're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
The word of the month is, I'm still waiting for a winner. All great submissions. Got email today. Hey, who won? You got to make me laugh. Somebody that stops me in my tracks. You know what to do. We don't have a word of the month yet, and we have a list of contenders. And if I'm forced to pick one, I think we are settling, and I don't want to do that. There's going to be one, and when it happens, it's going to be big. So give me a word of the month. All right? Follow us on Twitter, at JChurchRadio. You know what's great is I'm watching Ben Trout just comes in with Summer of 69. Hey, Ben, thank you for the T-shirt, and thank you. Is that a cutting board? What am I supposed to do with that, Ben? And I want to see you. He sent me a Bristol Motor Speedway T-shirt. It's amazing. I got a picture of it. I haven't posted it yet. Thank you, Ben. And I think is it a cutting board? It's a Bristol cutting board, the last Coliseum. It's really cool. Thank you, Ben. Email throughout the show, Jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. Tonight, Doug Taylor is with us, the magnificent civilization of Atlantis. On this day in history, 1605, yes, it happened. King James learns of the gunpowder plot. At about midnight, on the night of November 4th, going into the 5th, Guy Fawkes was found lurking underneath the Parliament building, and the premises was searched. Some 20 barrels of gunpowder were found, and during a torture session on the rack, Fawkes revealed that he was a participant in the English Catholic conspiracy to annihilate England's Protestant government and replace it with Catholic leadership. Remember the 5th of November. September. Remember the 5th of November. V for Vendetta. Did I say September? See, that's what I get for not having notes. You gotta love it. Fate or fact. An Arkansas school for the deaf's nickname is the Leopards. The Deaf Leopards. And that is a fate or fact. I posted today over on my Facebook page, if you go over to Jimmy Church on Facebook, and you'll see a picture of their scoreboard. It is so cool. The Def Leopards. I mean, how cool is that? The answer is very. All of the news that you know nothing about. Today, a big announcement from NASA, a live press conference, a presentation to announce that there is a planet called Mars. Yeah, it was amazing. It was a nail biter. Egypt's pyramids. Now, okay, I also posted this today on my Facebook page, and I had to do this. This isn't a political show, but it is a show about intelligence and the quest for knowledge. Am I correct? Well, brainiac Ben Carson. Okay, and what is important about what I'm about to read to you is this is a guy with ambitions of POTUS. That's his ambitions. His ambition is to hold the nuclear suitcase. Ben Carson. This isn't a political show. It is a show that will single out idiots, though. He said, and I'm quoting, okay, let me just check this out. He says that Egypt's pyramids were built by the biblical Joseph to store grain and were not, as archaeologists believe, tombs for pharaohs. Ben Carson, the retired neurosurgeon who is seeking the nomination for the White House, made these remarks in 1998 at an address at Andrews University, a school associated with the Seventh-day Adventist Church, to which he belongs. Don't care about that. It's no big deal. But the video was posted on BuzzFeed yesterday. I've seen it. It stopped me in my tracks. A couple of gems from the video, and I'm quoting here. Just picture Ben Carson's face, okay? And then listen to this. My own personal theory is that Joseph built the pyramids to store grain. Now, asked yesterday if he still held these views, Carson told CBS News, and I'm quoting, yes, it is still my belief. Couple of more quotes. And when you look at the way that the pyramids are made, with many chambers that are hermetically sealed, what? And they'd have to be that way for various reasons. And I'm continuing here, quoting. And various scientists have said, well, you know, there were alien beings that came down and they have special knowledge. And that's how, you know, it doesn't require an alien being when God is with you. End quote. Ben Carson dropped scientists and aliens in the same sentence. And we want this guy to walk around with the nuclear suitcase? I ask you, Ozzy Osbourne is expected in San Antonio today to visit the Alamo after peeing on the site some 33 years ago. I will never forget that news when it broke. As we all know, the Prince of Darkness was banned from the Alamo for life on February 19th, 1982, after being on the Alamo, which was constructed in 1939. He peed on the Alamo cenotaph, which was constructed in 1939 to honor 189 Texans who died at the site. However, the original ban held for only 10 years because he returned in 1992. Councilman Roberto, this is where the story gets a little funny. Councilman Roberto Trevino made the announcement last night and said Osborne plans to visit the site with his son today, along with a video crew from the History Channel. Trevino offered limited details on his arrival because they want to keep the event low-key. Now, how do you keep the event low-key? By doing a press release and having History Channel show up with a video crew with the Prince of Darkness. How is that low-key? I'm just saying. That's the way my brain works. The House of Representatives approved a highway bill today with 6 years of policy directives, but only 3 years of funding. I guess this is comedy news tonight. That's what it is. This is funny news. The bill approved on a 363 to 64 vote, and it must still be reconciled with a similar Senate version that was approved earlier. The House bill authorizes $325 billion in spending for the period, but that level of funding is only for the first 3 years. Somebody explain to me how that works. I'm just saying. All right. Now, good news. Check this out. Potentially the most difficult environmental test in history is about to take place. Scientist Dr. J. Marvin Herndon, Renee brought him up last night, if you remember, along with 2 volunteer environmentalists from the National Crime Scene Cleanup Association, are setting out to find conclusive evidence about the existence of chemtrails. Award-winning director-producer Michael J. Murphy is going to document everything. The Federal Aviation Administration will be granting waivers to allow the 2 pilots to surpass the current Guinness altitude record in a powered paragliding aircraft of 24,898 feet. With the state-of-the-art air monitoring equipment, the 2 pilots will be flying into the chemtrails at around 30,000 feet above sea level, battling winds of up to 100 miles per hour and temperatures around minus 70 degrees Fahrenheit. They're going to collect data that has never been collected before. It's about time. And this is Fade to Black. Let's get out of here. Let's do this break. When I come back, Douglas Taylor right here. We're going to be talking about Atlantis all evening. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Bespoke Radio for the Matt. Brian Adams. Brian friggin' Adams. That's all I got to say. I'll be right back.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio.
Hello, I'm Katie, and you're listening to my main man, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, this is Ray Hobbs here, repping the planet, and you're listening to my good friend, Jimmy Church, Fade to Black, on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA digital broadcast station.
Imagine no longer being tied down to your computer, but having the freedom to take live talk radio with you anywhere you go. TalkStream Live introduces our first ever iPhone application. The talk shows you follow now follow you. And your iPhone is now the fastest and easiest way to stay connected to the best talk radio on the internet. Let TalkStream Live transform the way you listen to radio. Listen to live talk shows 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Mobile Talk Radio from TalkStream Live. Now available in the iTunes App Store.
This is Toby Kebbell. You're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier. And this is Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers. Yes. We're of the Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier. And I'm Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers. And you're listening to Jimmy Church. The Revolution.
All right, you Fadernauts. Studio Dome has done it once again. A new Studio Dome Fadernaut special. Introducing the Studio Dome Boom Box Bluetooth speaker. It's got a rear-firing bass film subwoofer and dual 52mm main speakers. You'll never listen to your tablet or cell phone speakers again. Just click on the Studio Dome banner, use the promo code Jimmy, and you'll get the SBB for $49 and free shipping. And get a Buddy 4-port USB charger for free. That's a $19.99 value right there. And they'll throw in a Buddy in the box. It's the best deal on the net anywhere. Just go to JimmyChurchRadio.com, click on the Studio Dome banner, enter the promo code Jimmy. Go Beckley Teppy.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to Jimmy Church on Fade to Black, across the globe on the Game Changer Radio Network and the one and only KGRA Radio, The Planet.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. Tonight, we have very special guest Doug Taylor and the magnificent civilization of Atlantis. It is Fader Night. We're going to be taking your calls in just a bit. Hang tight. The number is 323-825-5045. If you would like to speak to Doug, you can Skype in also Fade to Black and the number 14. Author, teacher, and visionary artist Douglas Taylor has spent his life researching the unique and powerful lessons that are available through altered and transcended states of consciousness. He has come to the conclusion that all of the elements of your present personality are a relationship of past life experiences that continue to repeat the information that has been accumulated over a history of countless civilizations and lifetimes. His website is solicjourneys.com, and I would like to welcome to the program, for the first time, but my good friend, Doug Taylor. Doug, how are you tonight?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for inviting me on your show.
Yeah, thank you, Doug. And first off, before we get started, and you know, I know that you listen to the show, but you get the first-time guest disclaimer tonight. You know, it tends to be an honor, right? But the disclaimer is, it's just you and I sitting on my couch, having a conversation amongst friends. Where we start, we start. Where we end, we end. We're going to end as friends. You ready, Doug?
I wouldn't have it any other way.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, before we go backwards, because we need to go backwards before we go forwards. I sound like some Indian prophet right now, but that is certainly the case. But I have looked at and held your paintings and your artwork, and I've, you know, right up close, put my nose on it and checked it out. When did you know that you had a talent like that to paint like that?
That's kind of an interesting story in itself, and it's kind of a long one. I won't go into all of it, but I actually didn't have any what I would call creative ability or desire to express myself as an artist until age probably around 27, 28. I'd had an experience when I was in the Caribbean island of Puerto Rico, and the experience itself was pretty fascinating. I was actually psychically taken on aboard starship and communicated with 7 beings inside the ship in a way that I had become somewhat familiar with, as far as the fact that we don't actually live in this body. We are just occupying the physical as a means of gaining experience in this physical world. So that's already too much probably information. But anyway, after this experience, I began to desire to express myself creatively. When I came back from that particular surf trip in the Caribbean, I began drawing waves and I began drawing UFOs, something I had never had any association with. And that was kind of the beginning. And that was like, 40 years ago, 45 years ago. So it's kind of old hat for me now.
Were you trying to, and I've heard, and I've talked to you about this before, but I guess I've never made the connection. Were you trying to document what you saw? Was that a conscious or subconscious effort to, get pen to paper or brush to palette kind of thing and document what you had seen and experienced?
I think what we're kind of getting into now is a really broad and important subject, and that is the nature of visualization and the way that whether you're an artist, visual artist, or musical, or whatever way that you express yourself, that there is this need to bring through various, what I would call visions that we experience in different ways, and to somehow express them so that you not only feel that you have, again, connected with that energy that you felt. Like the energy I felt when I was in the ship was this just creative energy. It was super positive. And so I found when I would continue to try to paint, and at first obviously it was, it was garbage. It wasn't anything that would represent what I wanted, what I saw in my mind. So it took a few years of gaining the actual abilities to kind of do more of what I wanted to do. But it was more truly like kind of an altered state of consciousness that I felt when I would be expressing myself doing this creative work. So it's the same for everyone. It's what your mind is aligned or in tune with. That is what you're going to draw from this great transmitter, which you can call it God, you can call it infinite intelligent, whatever you want. But it's constantly expressing this creativity, and we can tap into it.
Did you go to school? Did you try to get any formal training, or are you self-taught? And I find that extraordinary, by the way.
Oh yeah, no, I didn't even have any association with art in school. All I really wanted to do was surf, and I was like a complete. I mean, I thought that that's what life was all about. I whenever I'd go surfing, I'd be like so completely and totally satisfied with life that I didn't need anything else, and it was just like I reached a point, like I said, 25, 26. I mean, I'd always been kind of interested in the mind and consciousness and in metaphysical aspects of life and what these different things kind of meant. But, surfing just gave me that sense of being a part of such a wonderful and peaceful state of mind, being in tune with it and nature and the whole relationship and the excitement of it, that, that's kind of all I really needed. But I got to a point where all of a sudden that didn't fill the void. It got to a point where my life expanded and I needed to fill that with something new.
Did you, before Puerto Rico, did you have any knowledge of ET or ufology or altered consciousness or anything interdimensional, or was that your first experience?
No, I've been studying probably since the age 16, maybe. I first got into yoga, which was sort of a kind of a minor aspect, more like hatha yoga, where you're doing different postures. I was very much into kind of a health nut type personality, and I'd be a health nut one week and then I'd be smoking pot the next. So, it kind of faded back and forth between those elements. But the thing that was, I think, so strong in my drive was the fact that I could see that there was this vast, incredible, unknown universe that laid before me that I just got tiny little glimpses of from time to time. And when I was in that ship, I got a glimpse of it just from the experience, and I'm not trying to, sometimes when people talk about experiences, it sounds like such an ego trip, that they're just trying to blab on and on. And so if I sound that way, then, I got to cop out to it. I got an ego, but it was more of the experience. What did I gain from it? So that's really the importance, is what am I gaining from this experience? And as I carried on, I eventually began, through a long history of education, of reading books on different philosophies, different religions, the Seth Speak books, the Carlos Castaneda book, the autobiography of the yogi books, some parts of the Bible, although the Bible never, or Christianity never really struck much of a chord. I think you were talking about that guy that's running for president. I'm not going to talk his name right now because I don't really feel like he deserves it.
Right. Well, tell me, let's go back to Puerto Rico. I want to start there before we jump into Atlantis and other aspects of all of this. Let's talk about what happened in Puerto Rico, because you and I had done a seminar together. Man, I'm trying to think. It was probably about a year ago, and I sat fully engaged with your presentation, and I was pulled in. And so I want to go back and try to revisit that for our audience and have them experience exactly what happened in Puerto Rico, because it is significant and it's a life-changing event. So, let's just start with, what were you doing in Puerto Rico? Because were you vacationing, and this was something that wasn't to be expected, was it?
No. Well, I was going there to surf the waves that are in that area, which it's a very tropical, it's like paradise, it's like Hawaii. So I've been a carpenter all my life, so I would save up my money and then I would travel to places where the waves were, spectacular. And I would just have these, extremely enjoyable experiences when I would be doing this. It's pretty, a lot of people who do different types of activities like that, they know that it's a certain adrenaline rush. It has a lot of neurotransmitters that get blasted into your brain. And so it's tremendously exciting and invigorating. And so what I was saying is, when I was transported into the ship, I felt myself actually kind of like beamed aboard, but I wasn't in my physical body. I'm not going to try to put that out there, but it was so vivid. It was so real that I was standing there. And there were 7 beings in front of me. I've actually done a little painting of the individuals who I was speaking to at the time. And I honestly believe that because of the fact that Puerto Rico is in the Caribbean, that this experience in some way could be related to Atlantis. Obviously all of these various aspects are things that I have to come from a standpoint of, there's no evidence that Atlantis has ever existed. But there's no evidence that there's life on other planets, supposedly, either. There's no evidence of a lot of different things, that it's just a matter of time before the evidence shows up. You could say the same for anything in history,
Right.
So, yeah, I believe it's just a matter of time before, when you think about the people on our planet, it's like, I hate to kind of go off on a tangent, but I can't help but say this after hearing you talk about that character earlier. It's like fear of death. It's really the bane of humanity. Everybody's terrified of dying. So it's like a huge number of the population of our society believe that some gigantic white-robed Santa Claus living in the sky is going to redeem them like trading stamps when they die and resurrect their physical bodies in some fanciful heaven where they will live happily ever after, so to speak. And, that whole concept to me is so ridiculous that it doesn't even really register in my mind as being something that anyone other than just some childlike mind could even begin to think would be a reality. But there's a vast population of this planet that believes that. So I'm kind of on the other end of the spectrum. I believe that we're evolutionary beings and that we're going through a process of trying to regain many of the steps forward that we had made in the past in civilizations such as Atlantis, where the true science of life, the true science of understanding consciousness was what was taught in the school systems. And so everybody had this beautiful creative flow of energy going all the time. And so I began to connect with mine at that point in time when I met those individuals in that ship. And then as I began to express through painting and through writing and through different aspects of creativity, I found that there was this science of attunement to where your mind is constantly, basically like a transceiver, you're receiving from this vast transmitter of infinite intelligence, and you can receive on whatever level that you can tune into. You can tune into level 33,000, or you can tune into the frequency at level 3. And not one isn't better than the other. It's just a matter of it functions the way it functions. It's like evolution. So really, evolution is really the nature of how everything functions in my own relationship to how life works. And so we're all evolving according to the patterns that we have set forth from the past. So if we can go back and see some of the mistakes we made, see some of the negative aspects of those relationships, we can kind of straighten them out and get ourselves back into a more positive perspective.
When this contact was made, do you feel, and looking back now today, back at that moment, do you think that it was ever physical, or was it just a neural connection?
Well, my concept of physical would have to really be broken down, I guess, because when you think of physical, you think of the way that most people identify with their specific ego consciousness that they pick up through their 5 senses. So if you break all that down, you'll find that what they're really doing, or what we're really doing, is we are receiving waveform energies going through our sense structures, which are basically pitched to a specific frequency, the atomic frequency. And so if we were to break down the elements of our own physical bodies, we find that as they go down further and further into the cells, into the molecules, into the atoms, that we're little solar systems of energy that are moving through another energy field on a larger scale that is really interdimensional. So the physical aspect of it is not really something that I would give the most attention to, even though that's where we live and that's where we function, and it is important.
Of course.
But what I'm saying is that the vividness, the intensity of the experience is really how you should kind of, in a sense, justify or understand just what is taking place. So
sure.
An experience comes up and it's so powerful that it just is beyond anything you've experienced in a physical way, then you have to give it some kind of justification as being real.
Yeah, well, exactly. And when you're in that moment, is it vivid enough to the point where you could almost walk around in a 3-dimensional sense, or look at the physical aspects of where you are at and see the details of it?
Yeah, I would say it's more like, here we have 5 senses and we're kind of picking up the information and there's a lot of different things that are kind of bogging us down, or for whatever reason we're going through different, cycles of consciousness, kind of the highs and lows, the sine wave, the up and down motion that everybody goes through.
Right.
But when you're in that higher consciousness where you're connected with a frequency that isn't just relative to the physical frequency, it's actually much different, more real, cycles of consciousness, kind of the
Are you
Does
there?
that make sense? I didn't quite get that.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, I had clicked on your website. That was the audio from your website that was playing back for a split second. And so when you were going through this and it ended, did you want to try to recreate it? Did you try to make another connection? Did you try to go back? And did you question your own sanity at that point?
No. When I was leaving, it was like the most beautiful, positive thing that had ever happened to me. And I'd been thinking surfing was the whole, reality of life being the most positive thing you could ever do. And this was far beyond that, because it kind of just opened up an entire new avenue of the possibilities of consciousness, of what really is out there and what we can experience. And so it kind of gave me a push to move into that realm. And I found that, as I continued on, I actually was becoming more sensitized. I was becoming my frequency was changing slightly. So instead of everything being wonderful all the time, like you would think it's going to be, as you raise into a higher state of consciousness, whether it's nirvana or whatever it is, I found that my life actually got kind of complicated in a lot of ways. I was having, experiences that not only would I go to this high positive state of mind, but I would also drop down to these lows where I would feel so weighted down by being in the physical body and not really knowing what the hell was going on, that, it became quite a test to keep yourself moving forward, keeping yourself positive about the fact that that this does exist on some future plane that you can reach if you're willing to put out the effort to do it. So it's all a matter of learning how your mind works and being able to function in an intelligent way so that when you do leave your physical body, you'll be able to have enough knowledge to be able to swim in that atmosphere of pure thought.
Yes,
so that's
sure.
what we're talking about. Reality isn't this physical body. This is kind of like the dream that we're having. Reality is on the other side.
You come back out of that and you're feeling so great, and then you got to go walk past like a McDonald's and go, oh.
Yeah, not just that, but all of the different, the things that happen in your life,
well, that's what I mean.
Losing somebody who you were really close to, that they pass over, and then you got to kind of go through the whole process of trying to understand, okay, I'm going to move on too. I'm going to die, and I don't have, it might sound like it, but I definitely don't have the answers. But I've learned through my own experiences about the reality of a lot of these other factors that I think the planet that we live on is very slow in kind of evolving into this knowledge. Shows like you are where it's happening at. Shows like the one that you're putting on, where people are open-minded about it.
Well, and you didn't answer the second part to my question.
I know, I forgot all about it.
Yeah. Did you try to immediately go back? Did you try to get back to that moment?
That's the funny part, because when I was leaving, I don't really want to go into it because I'm already talking about so much stuff that's not related to Atlantis, which the show is supposed to be about. But when I was actually in the ship, and after I had had this incredibly beautiful experience that I already talked about, all I could think in my mind, all that was coming through was, can I go with you? Can I go with you? I did not want to go back to, my life on the earth. I did not. I wanted to go with these individuals because the excitement, the enthusiasm, the just pure joy was so far beyond anything I'd experienced. And then when I went hopping back, it was all crystal clear in my mind, and I was laying on my bed awake, just thinking about the whole thing. And of course, at that point, I was just totally excited, but then it kind of, they kind of fade away. But there was a lot of experiences after that, especially through continuing to educate myself about what that experience meant and how I could be in this ship with these individuals who obviously were on a much, much, much more advanced state of consciousness than anything I had ever been aware of. That it gave me the excitement and the desire to learn more and to learn how I could function on that level to some degree.
Right.
So creativity has been a great big part of that.
We're going to be up against a break here in a couple of minutes, and then we'll jump into Atlantis feet first when we come back after the break. I just have one final question, and I do this with everybody, Doug, when we're talking about this type of contact or experience, because I want to live it with you, okay? And the question is this: what about smells? Did you smell anything unique? Was there anything about the beings? Was there anything about the atmosphere? Do you remember that part of the experience?
I remember a clarity of consciousness that it's like, my normal state of mind would be like just weeds that are just growing through my head, just this heavy, intense pressure, which I'm which is the normal state of mind I'm in, so I don't notice anything unusual. And to have that completely cleared out to where your mind is just kind of like a clear picture of what your future can be, and it was something pretty spectacular.
Yeah, I can only imagine. And now, and when you're back in this reality, right, and you're doing your day-to-day thing, is there anything that ever happens that you see or smell that reminds you of that moment and keeps you in check?
Yeah, there's been many other things that are what I would say relative to that, because it all comes down to the frequency that I was able to function on when those individuals brought me up into their ship and basically, gave me that gift in a way. I don't know if you'd really call it a gift. I wanted to experience it, so maybe I deserved it or whatever. But to experience that and then to be in a position where, okay, I want to continue experiencing that. I learned that it's not something that somebody can just do for you. It's something you have to learn how to do yourself. It takes a heck of a lot of work.
Was there, and I get this every time we start to talk about this with a guest, this will pop up in Twitter, and it just did right now. Was there any associations to color or glowing colors when you were there?
Absolutely. The inside of the ship, everything was radiating light. And the individuals who I was looking at, who I was communicating with telepathically. This was all telepathic, which I'd never experienced in any kind of dream state.
Right.
Everything was radiating light. They had light radiating around them, but what was really amazing is that the ship itself seemed to be made of some kind of crystalline material that was just radiating light from everywhere. There wasn't any lights on. It was just, the whole thing was radiating. So yeah, that would be, I think, a factor of the type of technology that they have on some of these more advanced planets, and that was utilized in Atlantis also.
Did it make you feel a little dumb?
Made me feel like I was the most primitive.
Right.
But, it was like I felt like a gorilla in comparison. I don't know. Gorillas are pretty cool, really, when you think about it.
Well, it gives.
I just felt very, very primitive and very, very like I was not anywhere close to being in the state of mind that they function in. It's like they lifted me up, but okay, now they gave me a peek.
Right.
How am I going to get there?
Yeah. Well, it gives you.
I've learned it's not easy.
It gives you
a goal. There yet.
Yeah, it gives you a goal. You know that
exactly.
there's a place to go.
Right. I mean, people experience it in a lot of different ways. I think, whether I didn't mean to put down religion too much there when I made those statements, but I think that, when we see something, whether it would be an angelic experience or whatever our beliefs are, that, everybody's going through their own process of evolution. They're going to see it in their own particular way, but
okay, let me jump in right there, and let's take our break. When we come back, we're going to go feet first right into the magnificent civilization of Atlantis. Tonight's guest, Douglas Taylor. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black. We'll be back right after this short break. Stay with us.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
Always on the edge of the hottest alternative talk. Jimmy Church with Fade to Black. KGRARadio.com.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Did you ever turn to your radio for your favorite talk show to find that it's been preempted for this?
In the air to deep right center. Back goes Lewis to the wall, and it's out of here!
Or this?
And I'm ashamed of you, Hillary, for voting for it.
Do you have a favorite talk radio program that's not available in your city? Just go to TalkStreamLive.com for links to the best streaming talk radio shows. At TalkStream Live, you will find live talk shows 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. All your favorites are here. With such a large selection, you will also discover some new favorites. On the go and still want to listen? With a mobile smartphone, simply type TalkStream Live on your internet browser. Now you can take internet radio with you. You will also find hundreds of music, news, and sports streams. Best of all, the TalkStream Live directory is free and there's never a login required. Remember TalkStreamLive.com, the fastest route between you and your favorite talk radio show.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Welcome back to Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Doug Taylor is with us. Unbelievable artist. We're talking about Atlantis, the magnificent civilization of. Now, Doug, before the break, I said we were going to jump in feet first, and I want to kind of slowly move into this. When we're talking about Atlantis tonight, we have Plato's Atlantis, we have Edgar Cayce, Blavatsky. There are different views and takes of Atlantis, and certainly locations too as well. So let's discuss specifically those attributes, and you tell us, what is Atlantis?
Okay, well, to get more directly into really the meat of the subject, so to speak, on Atlantis, we'd have to, first of all, accept the fact that, like I said earlier, we haven't really found any definitive evidence that this civilization existed. So it's a matter of, like I was speaking about earlier, of being able to be intuitive and to be able to see in various dream states and in understanding your mind as being able to go back and re-express and reconstruct some of the events that have happened. And that's how I became knowledgeable about the subject. I began reading some books that I thought were the best ones I'd ever read. One was called Return to Atlantis, and it was put out by the American Academy of Science. And this talks about how Atlantis was basically a civilization that was started by an individual who was a very, very spiritually advanced person called Poseid. And Poseid had incarnated into a group of people who were quite primitive at the time. And so it was a society that didn't have technology. It was very, very primitive. This would be about 80,000 years ago. And so Poseid had specifically come to Earth, incarnated into a physical body so the people could accept and recognize, that he was one of them. And in order to begin to develop the civilization. And so he actually was contacted by individuals from the star system, from the Pleiades, and through the processes that they had of being able to step up his frequency, they were able, through bringing him aboard their starship, to actually reinvigorate his mind so that he could in a sense, evolve what might take, hundreds of thousands of years. He could do it in a matter of one lifetime because he had that development. And so he was really, King Poseid was the actual individual who began the civilization of Atlantis, along with the help of these individuals from the Pleiadian planets, who also helped to found the cities around the planetary system of the Pleiades that these more advanced spiritual teachers came from. And so they came as a means of developing a society to help the people who were on Earth, the Earth planet at that time, who had basically kind of lost their way to a certain extent.
What point in the timeline was this? Do you have was there a specific date?
Yeah, this would have been about 80,000 years BC.
I got you. 80,000 years ago.
That's when it would have first started. And the end of Atlantis would have been right around 14,000 BC. And that would have been when it was actually a combination of the warring factions who had been basically formulating ways and means of taking the power from the teachers who were the more advanced beings, who everybody should have been listening to. And as they were able to steal specific spaceships, and literally the grid of the technology at that time was set up with pyramids that were able to produce this vast power. Everything was wireless. And so, and to make a long story short, these spaceships actually disturbed the fields that all of these power grids were functioning on. As the planet would orbit, it was able to actually pick up the electromagnetic fields and turn them into a energy that could be stored within these pyramids. And the pyramids were covered with a specific material that would allow it to, in a sense, recreate a certain type of electricity or a certain type of power that could be utilized throughout all these different civil cities. There were 7 cities at this time in Atlantis. There was also some cities in India and China too at the time. So as this war broke out, these people were vying for power, and as the grid of those particular power towers, like we're talking about a 1,000-foot pyramid,
right?
As those were beginning to be hit by the various beam weapons that they had, it created this tremendous influx of a disturbance that unbalanced the continent as it existed at the time on Atlantis, to where it did begin to have a cataclysm, and it was basically a vast and huge earthquake, tidal wave combination that literally sunk the planet in one day.
Did this is getting ahead of the story, but I just have to ask, the pyramids themselves, the 1,000-foot pyramids, those were on Atlantis specifically. Is there a relation to the pyramids in Giza, which are half that size? They're 400 feet tall.
Yeah. There's a definite relationship with the pyramids that you see, both in Mexico. You'll see them all over the world. In Asia, they have some. China even has some pyramids. Sure. Oh, they even got one in Las Vegas.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
I don't want to go there and play in that one. You might lose some money. But, the pyramids were something that were a memory in people's minds of this incredible splendor that had once existed. And so, they were, in a sense, trying to recreate it in different ways. But a lot of the knowledge had been lost as to what they really were built for originally and how they function.
I'll be honest. When I go to Vegas and I go to Luxor, and I realize what it is. I know what it is, but I still feel really cool on the inside.
It's awesome. It's incredible. I've been a builder all my life, and when you go there, and if you've been, building houses, or I've built custom houses, but you go there and you see the kind of, the structure or the architecture. It's incredible
that they pulled that off. Yeah. Hey, what about this is totally off the beaten path, but have you been to the pyramid at Long Beach State?
Yeah. Well, what freaked me out a couple times, I was working over in that area, and I didn't really even know that they had built that.
Same thing for me.
Basketball stadium?
Yes, same thing
and
for
I
me.
was driving down the street, and all of a sudden I look over, and you just feel like you're having a flashback.
Right.
What am I looking at here? It's just it seems so out of place. But yeah, I know what you're talking about. It's mind-boggling. But those are the ways that we kind of tune in. We tune back to the times when that was something that was part of the actual society. Everybody was familiar with the reality of these pyramids, what they were used for, and that a lot of times they were actually the temples and the actual power towers at the same time. So these higher advanced beings could go inside, and there would be this super high frequency that the average person really wouldn't be able to align himself with. So it would be kind of dangerous for them to go in there. It would be these vast crystalline structures where these very, very advanced teachers would recharge themselves, because they had to recharge themselves, the teachers of Atlantis, because when they would go out into the public, it was all draining out, because the positive always flows to the negative, and the negative was much larger in the scale of the type of people who needed that kind of help. And so they could come back to this pyramid that was contained with these tremendous crystalline blocks that were just radiating this energy, and they would come together and basically regenerate themselves, just like Jesus did when he would go up into the mountains, and he would, basically realign himself with his higher self.
I remember, I'm driving down in Long Beach, and it just like off of the corner of my eye, I see the pyramid, and then some buildings came into, and I was like, what, right? And I had to zigzag, on the streets and try to get, and then I would catch a glimpse of it. I got closer, and finally I got up to it. I couldn't believe my eyes. It was majestic. It's huge, too. That's the other thing. It's humongous.
It is. It's extremely large. Yeah, I think a pyramid in itself, it has that, both the memories that it brings back, but also it carries a certain energy because of the fact that it's a structure that has some geometry that is very unique.
And it just resonates to us, to our past, to our conscious. I got out of my car and I stood next to it. It took my breath away, and I was like, this is just amazing. Yep. And I felt like I had discovered something, Oh, man, I got on the phone. I was calling people. Hey, did you guys know there's a pyramid in Long Beach? Or like, of course. I was like, man, I'm the last guy in L.A. to know that there was a pyramid right here in L.A., and it is totally beautiful. Some pictures just got tweeted.
And they play basketball there all the time.
Yeah, it's an arena. Yeah, it's absolutely beautiful. So now let's get back to the timeline. There was forever, going back thousands of years, the stories of a couple of pillars in Giza that had inscriptions on it telling the story of Atlantis, and they were there, and there was two pillars, and it was talked about not only in Greek mythology but also in Egyptian circles too as well. And those pillars have never surfaced, but certainly they existed. They've torn down and defaced and resurfaced things over there all the time. I get that, but there was certainly an Egyptian Atlantean connection that the Egyptians talked about and wanted to document.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because that, it actually dovetails into another aspect of the Egyptian civilization, in that at the time of Atlantis, when it was perceived, because these advanced teachers were very, very aware and very clairvoyant, they knew that this trouble was coming, that this was going to take place. So there was two individuals who were at that time the leaders of Atlantis. And so they actually were able to use a submersible craft, and their names were Isis and Osiris. And they were able to make it from Atlantis through this submarine and go to what at that time was a continent that existed, which was Egypt. And it wasn't Egypt at that time, but they were able to establish a civilization that was based on the teachings that came from Atlantis with their particular power of being able to, in a sense, bring back a group of people and bring them together. So Isis and Osiris, you hear these legends about different gods and goddesses and all this stuff. And there's facts in there somewhere. You just got to kind of pick through it and find it for yourself. Everything I'm talking about, you could say, okay, whatever, this guy, he's obviously off his rock, but there's no valid proof of any of this. So I'm just speaking from my own experiences and what I've learned about my life that has, in a sense, given me some, progressive motion. So I'm hoping that'll connect with somebody else. But those two individuals, Isis and Osiris, if you were to study the history, again, you'd find that they were actually Atlantean teachers who were able to escape the destruction of Atlantis and start the civilization of Egypt.
So was the architecture, the image, the sculptures, the artistry, the headdresses, the everything about Egypt, was that what Atlantis looked like?
Well, it was, it was beginning, again, it was an evolution going in kind of a slightly different direction because Egypt didn't have the same length of evolution in a sense.
Sure.
It didn't quite ever attain to the heights that Atlantis attained. Atlantis was just like paradise on earth. And Egypt, under those two, was a wonderful place, but they died in a pretty bad, horrible way, just again due to people who didn't want to know about the reality of the truth that they weren't necessarily the advanced individuals who they wanted to believe they were. It's kind of like the religious people that we have today who are out there and telling people send them money so they can heal them of their cancer. Okay, maybe that'll work, but it's unlikely. And so those are the people that you put on a pedestal, and they're the ones who want to break down the truth so that it can't, basically show them the reality of the fact that they're a hypocrite.
Well, and that's the connection between Egypt and Atlantis is such an obvious one in that Egypt started off in the very beginning, the very first dynasty, when Upper and Lower Egypt, everything they got going, they were at their peak. That's the crazy part. The best art, the best sculpture, the best build, everything happened early on, and then it just went downhill. And this immense amount of knowledge, of spirituality, of religion, of knowledge of the stars, math, science, everything, they had that from the word go. They didn't build up to it from a primitive state. They started in that state.
That's a great observation. I never really thought of it, but yeah, that's my understanding, is that Isis and Osiris escaped Atlantis when it was being destroyed and started the Egyptian civilization, and then they were basically murdered by the priests who wanted to maintain the power and who started the various religions where they believed in animal gods and all this other stuff. So there's a lot of different relationships that are so hard to really get through all of the BS to get right straight to the facts and the truth. So everybody's got to kind of do that for themselves, do their own research.
Now,
but one more thing, just for a quickie to connect this to another civilization, that there was an individual in Egypt much later on. This would have been, probably, I'm not quite sure, it would have been 2,000 years BC maybe, but this individual named Hermes Trismegistus, who actually, again, a very, very advanced teacher who felt this call and had some of his Egyptian craftsmen, he was one of the teachers at that time, build these ships that actually sailed and began the Mayan civilization. So now all of a sudden you begin to start seeing how some of these things are related. And, you know, it's very, very fascinating the way that these civilizations kind of repeat themselves. And there's the rise and the fall, you know. And what's the rise? The rise is the awareness of the spiritual nature that everyone is a part of this great infinite force.
Right.
And the fall is when they start believing that the ego or the material world has somehow the greater force for what they're striving to become, because it doesn't have any real future. You know, everything in the material world eventually devolves back into the elements from when it was created, whereas the spiritual aspects are moving into other and higher dimensions.
You had mentioned earlier, let's go back to the early history of Atlantis. It's been described a couple of different ways, and one of them was one view is that Atlantis was a military power, was a military machine, something to be feared. And they had technology for that. And then there's the other side that it wasn't about that at all. It was purely about consciousness and knowledge and moving forward. So was it a combination of the two? Because you had mentioned about, you know, warring factions and war. So what part of it is real?
Yeah, that's all true. You know, I mean, just if we kind of look at what our society is like today, just picture all those individuals that are in our society today, or, you know, at least a portion of them. And that same type of mentality would be going on. So these teachers are coming in, they're trying to help. And so there is this vast positive energy, but there's also the opposite. There's the negative side. Everybody has the positive and the negative side within themselves. And so the actual cycle of the evolution of those civilizations would go up and down. And so there would be, you know, this warring and this horrendous, negative, egotistical attitude that would have an advanced technology, which would be very advanced and capable of creating tremendous destruction. And yet the teachers from these more advanced worlds would keep coming back and trying to help to, in a sense, keep the ship moving in a forward direction, but it just wasn't really the way that it ended up. You know, it ended up the way we are today. Look at where our civilization's at right now.
Here's the $1 million question. With all of your vision of this and what you have acquired, where was Atlantis? Was it the Mediterranean? Was it in the Atlantic, or were the continents in different places with continental shift and drift?
Yeah, I think that from what my perspective would be on the actual geology, I guess you could say, you would be going a fairly large continent, probably not too much smaller than the United States, that would be going through Spain, the Mediterranean, touching on the Caribbean, and then maybe even, you know, coming down towards where the East Coast would be today. So it would be, you know, parts of Europe, the Caribbean, kind of like a lot of people talk about the Bermuda Triangle, you know, and the stuff that goes on there. And so you could say that potentially is one of these crystalline power tower crystals that, as the Earth turns on its axis, that it actually at certain points, again, focuses out the energy that it was radiating in a positive way, but now it's all in the distortion. And so it can create certain problems for people. You know, I mean, that's just one possibility. I don't know whether that's valid or not, but that's one idea of why the Caribbean would be an area that would have been one of the points of demarcation for Atlantis.
Now, in Plato's description, which is one that we all visualize because it is it has such beauty when you listen to or when you read his description of the canals, the moats, the central part, the size of the mountains, where they were located, and dimensionality wise. Is that what you saw, and is that what you were, taught about? The circular canals and the construct of the city and the central section too, as well.
I think that I've found even in my own experience with building that when you build a circular structure, there's no corners, and so it creates kind of a unique feeling. I always enjoy doing it, and so. What I believe that these Atlanteans understood was that they wanted to build their cities and that everything carried a certain frequency. So certain locations were on certain lines of force, so to speak, as the earth was turning. And so that would be the ideal place to put the temple, so to speak, so that it would be able to magnify or amplify the actual power and the energy by which that temple would be able to radiate out and influence the people, in a positive way. So the circular nature of the cities also was constructed as a means of formulating something that was aligned, so to speak, with a greater geometry that actually focused energy on its own accord. It's like almost self-activating technology that you hear about sometimes, that just the fact that the structure is built in a certain way in a certain location is going to focus the power and the energy on that spot. But it's also the person has to be able to kind of tune into it. It's not like automatically going to happen.
Do all of our, we're going to talk about you specifically in just a second, but do all of our past lives eventually end up on Atlantis? Do we all just originate there, our own selves?
Well, I think that if you look at the population of the world and the likely population of Atlantis in its heyday, we're talking 80,000 years, so there could have been obviously millions and millions and millions, if not billions, of people who have gone through the process of birth, death, rebirth, death. And so, I think most people on the planet today have some kind of relationship with it. And obviously, what's important is to understand that, we can actually, in a sense, bring it back into the forefront of our memories and see individuals like Nikola Tesla, who, was trying so desperately hard in his time to bring about this complete and total revolution of, power, being able to get wireless energy to be something that would be universally known. And so I think that is an aspect that is, as we're developing, we're getting the technology back. Now it's just a matter of getting the spiritual awareness as to how these things really work. And I think, it's coming about slowly but surely.
And so take us back there, and with your own past life experience and how you got back to there and to that point, what did you learn about the structure there? What was the basis of day-to-day life? Was it education? Was it fighting to get ahead? Was there money? Was there angst? Was there crime? Take us back.
Well, all of those things would obviously be true because it was just dependent on the particular individual and what was in their mind, what they were trying to accomplish, or the level of their development spiritually. So, as I recall it, there were these teachers, these super advanced teachers, who would, in every way, shape, and form, attempt to help other people with no desire for any type of reward of their own. So, in other words, it was such a different state of mind than what we're familiar with. And it's like, what do I ever do that I don't expect some sort of reward? Or what do I ever do where I don't see myself as competing with other people? So they were completely and totally beyond that level of, a physical earth consciousness. They were functioning on this much, much higher frequency, and yet they could be pulled down. And so many of the more advanced individuals are the people that are functioning here. You are functioning as a individual who could have been more advanced, living in a much more spiritually aware state of consciousness, and yet have fallen back. So that's kind of the level of where we're at today, is that a lot of the people on this planet had been more advanced and had gotten bogged down. And that's where the past life educational therapy comes in that it's in those past lives where we've received these various shocks and these traumas. And that was taught in the school system of Atlantis, that you could, through understanding the psychic nature of your consciousness, see where these various shocks and blocks were at. And that's what, in my own life, that's what I've been able to do. And that's how my own creativity started to come about, because, I talked about that experience I had aboard the ship. But after that, it was all a matter of beginning to recognize that I'd been involved in murdering people and being a pirate and doing all kinds of dastardly deeds. And by the recognition of those elements of that lower nature of myself, I was able to, in a sense, release myself from those lower frequencies within my psychic body. So it's all quite an advanced knowledge about the whole process. But it really comes down to the fact of understanding that we are truly a spiritual energy system, and we are retaining every experience that we've ever had throughout, most people, countless thousands of lifetimes. Both physical and spiritual.
I find that fascinating. And as I picture this, are we dealing with this educational system? Are we dealing with what we can relate to, here in the now, in that, are these children, does it start there? Are these children that are being taught this spiritual awareness, also about past lives and things that you're trying to correct in yourself, and graded, and then, as you get older, you eventually leave this school?
Yeah, exactly. It's, it comes back to the frequency. It's like your base plane frequency, the physical aspect of it is being generated from this psychic or this transmitting source, which is, people call it the soul, whatever you want to call it, but your astral body. But it's actually made up of all these billions and billions of waveforms of every experience that you've ever had, and that those are radiating into your physical body. And so different cycles of time will come in, and you'll experience certain both negative and positive elements of those. And once you can get kind of on top of it and understand when you're going through a negative relationship, some sort of block from your past, that these teachers that have been working from the time of Atlantis are still working with us, trying to help us to overcome and to raise ourselves back up so that we can function now in a much more positive way than we have since that time of Atlantis.
How do you know, how does a student know, and I'm not making light of this, I'm actually being very straight. How do you know when you've graduated and moved on? Because is it like a student could feel like they are ready, and then suddenly the teacher goes, you know what? No. And it's like, oh, man, really? I'm trying so hard here to improve myself. How does that work, and how do you know? How does Doug Taylor know when you have, taken another step up and another step up?
Well, you can feel the step-ups. There's no doubt about that. It's like the most powerful thing that will ever happen to you, because the very atomic structure of your body literally begins to vibrate as the psychic anatomy is raised in frequency, as these negative waveforms are being polarized in a positive way, so they're no longer affecting you in a negative way.
Right.
Your entire physical consciousness literally is raised, and so you feel it. But The problem is that there is a lot of that debris in there, and so now you feel, for a while, you feel like, oh my God, I'm free. I'm ready to go to whatever I need to do to, carry on to nirvana. And, but then you'll find that there's something else comes up. So no matter how far along the road you go, you're always going to find there's this polarity of positive and negative. Even if you are able to function on a level where you no longer need to incarnate into a physical body to come back to work out these various negative aspects, even in that higher frequency, you're still going to be working things out ad infinitum. So there's never a point where it's going to cease to be another mountain to climb, another road to follow, another, higher level of frequency to be able to function.
Exactly. And is part of that also people around you or negative vibes that are around you? Do you also have to cut that baggage loose too as well?
Yeah, you kind of find that it falls away naturally, because as you begin to raise your frequency, you begin to kind of magnetically be drawn to people who are interested in the same things that you're interested in. And so possibly some of your friends that you had who you were basically kind of just reliving certain elements from your past lives, a lot of times that was your family and a lot of your friends, you won't have a rapport with them anymore. It's not like you have to be, a jerk about it or anything like that, but you just simply don't have the rapport anymore. And it's kind of your prerogative to move on and to move up, because then you're helping them too. You're helping everyone. As you progress yourself, you're helping everybody who's connected to you in every way.
And how did they deal with that back in the Atlantean times? If there was negative parts of the population that just weren't moving forward, were they put on a boat and sent to Germany?
No.
You know what I'm saying?
It was always, the free will of the person to be able to make the choice as to, whether they want to try and continue to move themselves forward or whether they're going to let themselves be caught up and follow kind of the easy road, so to speak, into oblivion. But that's kind of what each person had to realize, is that the real sense of peace of mind doesn't come from being happy or from having, the sense of security that you have enough money to last forever. It comes from being aware of your consciousness as an integrated functioning participle of this great infinite intelligence, and that you are progressing along with the cyclic evolutionary movement of this vast infinite intelligence, and that there's no end. So that's kind of a abstract, aspect of understanding it, but that's kind of what's always intrigued me so much. Not that I'm there.
No, none of us are there. And somebody, Allison just posted, Doug, she goes, when you think it's over, it ain't over anymore. Buck it up. You got to start over, right?
That's true.
That's exactly true. Right. That's exactly right. Just when you think, you had the roughest life, on this go around, and you're like, man, I'm just going to go to the other side and relax. And then you find out, it's really funny.
It takes a lot of tenacity to really be involved in a progressive development of consciousness, because you really got to be in there for the long haul. Because as soon as you rest on your laurels and you think, well, I think I've made enough progress now, I can go back and, start, go get drunk or whatever. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Nope.
Everybody can get drunk anytime they want.
Yep.
But the fact is, if you continue down that road and you don't recognize that you're being pulled, in a reverse fashion of where you would like to go, then that becomes something that you'll have to work out in the future. It becomes, again, following the same pattern of regression rather than progression.
I don't want to sound strange, but this is the truth. We have a dog. Her name is Portia. She's a miniature schnauzer. And you can look into this dog's eyes. First off, she talks, she speaks. She literally, words come out of her mouth. But that's a whole nother thing. But you can look at her and you can tell that there is a human inside. I know that she did something bad in her past life, and that's it. And she's stuck in this dog's body right now, and she's just got to get through this and then start over. But am I wrong in that concept? Because I can feel it. I can look into her eyes, and she. I mean, there is a complete connection on a human level. That communication is there, and I know that is what's going on. I know it. Am I wrong?
Well, I don't know about your relationship between you and your dog, but my perspective would be that, the development of a human being through the evolutionary process is something that, it's basically very unique in that it's gone through a long, long history of incremental developments. And you could take it all the way back to some of the lower forms like that. But most of those lower forms, like dogs and the various animals, they're more, in my understanding, just connected with this infinite intelligent progression. So they're all moving forward automatically in a sense because they don't really have the free will to make the kind of decisions that we make, even though it seems like they do sometimes. But
sure.
That's my perspective on it, is that they're kind of already an automatic pilot moving themselves forward. And that's why we love our animals so much. And they're reacting according to, the elements of survival, the things that are a part of their particular makeup is the element of survival to continue. And we've given them an easy way to do that because we give them food, right? So they're not going to try to eat us. Otherwise, it might be a different story. But yeah, no, I understand what you're saying though. The personality of animals of all different types is never ceases to amaze me. We have a black cat that's just absolutely.
Yeah, I've seen the pictures. Now, the way that Atlantis, and I want you to help me with this, they had this balance between technology and spirituality and consciousness, and they were at one point balanced and harmonious. And somewhere along the line, that got out of control. And that is, I kind of feel that today with the way that we're dealing with things. And I think that we've realized that technology isn't always the answer. And I think that we're starting to pull back from that and trying to get back to a balanced way, that Mother Earth is not going to tolerate us going in this direction that we're going in for very much longer. And I think we're starting to understand that global warming, GMOs, you mess with Mother Nature, it's a bad thing. Is that what happened with Atlantis? And can we learn from that?
Yeah, I think what we're talking about again is the rise and the fall of civilizations. And it's no different than the rise and the fall of, the waves on the shoreline. It's the process by which the infinite re-expresses itself continuously. And we're the ones that make the decisions as to how we're going to be a part of this whole process that's functioning around us. And so, yeah, it's just a matter of the rise was the epitome when the teachers were able to connect with so many people that everybody was able to function harmoniously. And then as the cycle would drop, there would be these horrible, negative situations, whether, at the time of Atlantis, we're talking about, a 75,000 year history. You can imagine there was a lot of ups and downs, just like there would be in any civilization. But, it did continue on. So it was given so much input from these spiritual teachers to try to maintain the beauty as a means of helping all the people who were coming into the civilization at that time. And so now we're in a society that, we have little bits and pieces of that, but it's broken and fragmented so much that it's kind of hard for people to really find their way into what, really could be something that's going to progress them other than, some kind of religious philosophy that gets drummed into their consciousness from when they're a little kid. And, but again, that's the perspective of each individual. It's the decisions we all make as we're growing up as to what we believe. I mean, my parents were Mormons, my mother would give me surfboards if I went to church, and I just did it just because I wanted the surfboards. And the church did not mean anything to me because it just seemed like it was just such a false facade of, people who were just kind of searching for some sort of security, and that's how they found it, I think, and that was going to be saving them from their final death.
I've got a bunch of questions sent in from listeners here, so I'm going to go through these really quick as we head into the next break. Douglas, do you have any comments on the underwater military sonars that are killing marine animals?
That wouldn't be an area that I would have any expertise in, other than my awareness of HAARP, and I think it, the relationship that it has towards the military. And that's all part of the downfall of civilization, right? I mean, that's putting the defense, the so-called defense, it's more like offense, the weaponry of war as being the main importance in some society. Again, it's a false concept. It doesn't really matter because, we all want to feel secure and safe, but, the United States has 10 times the budget of all the rest of the countries in the world combined. I mean, do we really need to have that sort of defense, as they call it? So, yeah, I think they're just experimenting with things that they don't even understand. And if they're killing those beautiful animals that are out there in the ocean or polluting the ocean, it's all just an atrocity. It's a shame.
Do you know when you are going through a lesson?
I think you're always going through a lesson, and whether you know it or not means whether or not you're aware of it. So it's like a lot of times you go through a really intense lesson and you do get to have a little bit, you feel that sense that you learned something and that you've grown and that you've expanded your own knowledge. And so that's gives you the next step, and it's extremely excitement, the sense of, joy that you're accomplishing something in your life. But there are lessons always going on that I think for the most part, we're not picking up on the fact that we're learning a lesson. You go to work, somebody's, harassing you or somebody is annoying you at work. There's a lesson there for you to look at because it's within you. The reaction that you have to the other individual is within your consciousness. And so the lesson is for you to understand that and to be able to let go of that particular reactionary state of mind, because it's just, it's a negative vibration, so to speak. It's just more of the same old stuff that eventually can crescendo into a calamity.
What is the source of your Atlantis information? Is it the Emerald Tablets of Thoth?
Actually, my main understanding about Atlantis came from the book Return to Atlantis, which is from the United Academy of Science. Anybody can look them up on the internet and find those books. I found them to be the most fascinating. And again, like I said, as I was reading them, I was transported to these places. That's why that's how it became real to me. It's like Einstein said, imagination is more important than knowledge, but imagination is just the ability to image that which doesn't exist in our present knowledge. And so then we can expand into what could exist or what has existed, time of Atlantis. And so that's what those books did for me, is that they were actually brought in from these teachers who helped to establish that society. And as I was reading them, that was where I got so much of this information. But it also made sense in so many different ways. In other words, that was what I was kind of preconditioned to connect with. Somebody else isn't going to have the same experience possibly, but that's really where this information was coming from those particular individuals. It was Ernest L. Norman and Ruth E. Norman, and they began writing these books. And several of these books were Return to Atlantis, and it goes into the civilizations in a very unique and very descriptive way.
Did the 7 beings that you met in Puerto Rico give you a message for the rest of us?
No, not so much. I guess this is my message right now. I mean, I'm on a radio show. I was the type person who, wouldn't have ever been even up in front of a group of people speaking for any possible reason. And now I do that. And, so the message is, yes, we all have this incredible future ahead of us. And the more that we can be a part of helping others to recognize within themselves that this future exists, then that is what our purpose is. So that's about the only way I can answer that.
So, and this is from Allison, she says, so we create our very own psychopaths to teach us. Souls take on that role to burn off extra karma?
I wouldn't put it in that respect. What's happening when somebody there's a lot of different aspects to what you would call the interdimensional relationship of life. So there's other dimensions that exist where there are people who have completely been fragmented from a progressive state of mind. And so they exist kind of, you could call them ghosts or you could call them obsessions. But they come in on all the different negative frequencies. And so when somebody's thinking about doing something like going out and shooting up a school or all the crazy crap that we see go on, these other negative entities come in and they reinforce that thought. And so eventually that person goes and does this particular horrible atrocity. And all it's done is make them that much more immersed in this pool of negativity. And everybody that they contacted, everybody that they killed also now is connected in a more negative way. So, yeah, no, there's no positive aspect related to that. Not that that individual can't eventually learn the lesson and pull themselves out of that particular negative kind of state, but that's not the way to go.
With the references to stargates around the planet from not only different researchers, but stories throughout the past. Are those a direct connection and the results of technology from Atlantis?
Yeah, I think if we were talking about stargates, it would be kind of connected with a technology that the Atlanteans actually had integrated technology and spirituality, we know, so that they could, within their own consciousness, travel instantaneously to other dimensions, to other realms where they could gain knowledge and learn about a much larger field of information than the one that they were presently functioning in, come back, and then they could help to teach those people. But as far as the technology of the specific Stargate, I don't really have any information about that. I just know what I've seen on TV, which I always thought it was great.
There's something to it. And the reason why I think there is something to it, there are too many, not only references in mythology, and mythology is always rooted somewhere, and that goes, some of that goes back millennia, but also the different megalithic stone structures around the world that have the same basic concepts to them that we just don't understand. We don't bleeping understand why Göbekli Tepe is there, why the Mayan structures are there, why the stuff is in Peru and Bolivia and Pumapunku, Giza Plateau. We have no clue. Stonehenge. We can go on and on and on, but they're all also very similar. And it's fascinating to me. We just don't know what they were for. It's always funny to me. Immediately, an archaeologist goes, "Oh, well, it's a religious temple. It's pointing to the stars." Well, duh. Okay, I could see that, but they built these things with, with labor, with love, and with intention. It just wasn't built to look good. You know what I mean?
I'm sorry.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think that in many of those cases, it may have been, like we were talking about, from the technology of more advanced civilizations that existed even in the past, such as Atlantis, that like the pyramids were kind of a memory that, brought the people together, but it wasn't carrying the same power and technology that it did as it was associated with that spiritual awareness and technology. So, as far as stargates, I think that, again, that's getting into a technology where we're talking about being able to travel beyond the speed of light. So there's a lot of different theories, and they're coming to the fore, because just to get to the next star system, we're talking like 6 quadrillion miles, and the fastest we can go right now is like 60,000. So it's going to take, I think it's about 18,000 years just to get to the nearest star. So yeah, we're talking about a technology that we aren't there yet, and it would be incredible to be able to get to the point to where we can start to, be spiritually advanced enough to where that'll be part of our evolution, but it's like, if we're just going to go and create wars on other planets, which of course has happened, then what would be the point of anybody bringing us that technology or helping us to understand it better?
Yeah, I did the math, talked about this on the show a couple of weeks ago. Voyager will reach the next star and planet outside of our solar system, the next one over, the nearest, in the year 46,000 AD. 46,000.
30,000 years, 38,000 years, something like that. Yeah.
It's so funny. And by the time it gets there, obviously nothing on it's going to work. All it is just a piece of space debris. Hopefully somebody is going to go out and grab it and pick it up and figure out, its trajectory and where it came from, and maybe look at it and look at the stuff that we left on it for them and figure something out. But 46,000 years from now, are we even going to be here to receive their message that we let them know that we are back here and exist? It's a fascinating conundrum.
Yeah, it really is. But then when you get to the fact of, every one of us are going to go through this, you could call it a Stargate. When we leave our physical body, we're definitely going to be moving on somewhere, it just depends on what your beliefs are. But that's a pretty huge transition that we're going to go through. The energy of our physical body is suddenly going to be dissipated. And so it's like, okay, that's going to be a huge adventure. I hope we are ready for that one. I can't imagine anyone bigger than that.
Let's take a break. When we come back, let's start to tie it all together. And you know what we didn't bring up yet, Doug? We didn't talk about Edgar Cayce. We have to. Yeah, we have to go there.
The sleeping prophet.
Yes, this is Fade to Black. Doug Taylor, Atlantis. I'll be back right after this.
Hi, everybody. This is Rob Halford, the Metal God, on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
KGRA Radio. Intelligent talk.
Are you a paranormal investigator, ghost hunter, or UFO skywatcher? If so, FNGinnovations.com has the product you definitely need in your investigations kit or go bag. Introducing the Morpholite Wide Beam Tactical Flashlights that put the light where you need it most. Traditional flashlights shine a focused round beam with limited line of sight in the dark. Morpholite Tactical Flashlights change all that, utilizing a revolutionary wide beam design to enable you to see safety hazards such as hanging wires and steel, pipes, and holes in the floor you just can't see with a focused round beam. In the field, where safety is paramount, a 180-degree beam increases orientation and peripheral vision in the dark. Morpholite flashlights are ideal for investigations in abandoned facilities such as houses and hospitals, factories, caves, and tunnels. Avoid those low-hanging tree branches that poke your eyes in the woods. Visit FNGinnovations.com to see a full line of tactical lights and accessories. That's FNGinnovations.com.
Now you can find all your favorite talk radio shows live, all in one place at TalkStreamLive.com. Listen from anywhere, office, home, or in your car. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com and click on one of the many live talk show hosts you want to listen to. It's free and easy. No computer? Download the smartphone apps. Never miss your favorite talk show. Find them all at TalkStreamLive.com.
You want to know a secret? I love ponies. I really love ponies. I'm serious. I couldn't stay sane without ponies to brush.
Why fade to black? Because you never got that pony, damn it.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
Welcome back to Fade to Black tonight. Doug Taylor. We're talking about Atlantis, consciousness, us, you. I might even open up the phone lines. 323-825-5045. Doug, you want to take some phone calls?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm getting tired of hearing myself talk.
Oh, no. It's all about you, my brother.
No, it's not.
Yeah, let's. You have no idea. Right now, I'm watching Twitter, and the conversation going around with everybody is just absolutely wonderful. And thank you for that.
Well, I hope it's positive.
It's all positive. You can feel the vibe. Now, I want to talk about Edgar Casey because, and somebody had brought up, I think it was Walter brought up the the emerald tablets of Thoth, and there has to be a repository somewhere that we just haven't discovered yet. Was Edgar Casey right, and is that being repressed? You know, I'm talking about the library underneath the Sphinx paw.
You know, I think that there is definitely evidence out there that will bring the reality of these various civilizations to the forefront eventually. But, you know, as far as Edgar Casey's concerned, I think, you know, he just had such an incredible history of being able to describe and give readings in such a unique way to people and telling them about the history of, you know, their lives in Atlantis and at other times. And that I think that, again, that's something that goes against the grain of our present civilization where, you know, the religious systems are much more dogmatic in their approach to a belief of what takes place when you die and so-called ancient or other civilizations. You know, I mean, the planet's 7,000 years old according to, you know, the Bible. That's crazy. You know, I mean, we know through science and through the processes that we have formulated at this point today that we're finding things all the time. We're finding new things. So yeah, this is all going to come out eventually. You know, as far as whether it's specifically the way Edgar Casey says it's going to happen or the way that Yanerius and the books that they've written say it's going to happen, who knows how it's going to all unfold, but you got to follow your own sense of what is truth and what is, you know, truth has no agenda. You know, that's just the way it is. And everybody else does. You know, we all have an agenda, but if we're truly connected with trying to help in a selfless manner the planet and the people that we're associated with, then that in itself is its own reward, and that's going to bring these things to light eventually.
Did the seven beings on the ship did they mention Atlantis? And have you made a connection back to them?
They didn't mention Atlantis at all. To me, you know, I can't help but feel or wonder if that wasn't an experience that I may have had at some past life experience. In other words, something similar to that, because these individuals seem very familiar to me, but in a strange way. It was like, You know, it was like I could connect with them. I felt like I could understand in a sense where they were at mentally, but, you know, like I said, I wasn't there. I was like primitive. And yet it was almost like I had at one time been more positively associated with them. So, you know, as far as what it was or where it was, I don't have any specific information about that. All I know is the experience itself had a tremendous effect on me.
Were you, you know, this is kind of along the same lines when the starships and the warring factions that were going on with Atlantis, and then you are, you know, you're taking aboard a ship yourself. There must be a connection. Did they look the same? Was there the same vibe, same star system? You mentioned Palladians earlier too, as well. Are we connecting the dots here?
Yeah, I think that they're the general sense of the spiritual nature of, you know, the level that they were functioning on would have been similar to the teachings that were being formulated at times in more advanced civilizations such as Atlantis. But other than that, you know, I can't really, you know, put any specifics on it because I really don't know. And, you know, and somebody could say, well, it's just a fabrication of your own imagination anyway, which, you know, that's fine for somebody to say that, but, you know, you basically can say that about every experience you have in this physical world when you start really breaking it down into its component elements, that when you touch your finger onto the table, you're not touching your finger on the table. You're actually bringing two force fields of the atomic structures themselves, pushing them against each other. And so it's all an illusion, this physical dimension in a sense. And yet that's the problem, is that we've created such a concrete reality out of it that now we're kind of stuck in our own, a prison of our own making, so to speak.
When you are out speaking, I know people come up to you, you know, constantly and want either answers or they're going to relate their own experiences. You know, you have a collection of information that you don't talk about. I know that. You know that. And has somebody come up to you and talked to you about Atlantis and you went, holy crap. They are with me. They know. Have you had a moment like that? And can you tell me about it?
Absolutely. I think that one of the main things that I do, I really don't go out and speak that much. I mean, I like to, but sometimes, you know, it's just like, I just don't feel like I'm that great of a speaker, so to speak. So I'll have my painting set up. People can come and, you know, if they come and they look at them, and not that I'm trying to sell them. I work, like I said, I work as a finished carpenter. I'm 61. I'm the oldest guy on the job, still working pretty much. But I love doing it, and painting is just a hobby that I like to do. It's fun to do, and it keeps me kind of inspired in a different way. And so people see the paintings, and that seems to be what affects them. They say, wow, I've seen that somewhere. You know, I've had an experience similar to that. It reminds me of something, you know. So if it's carrying a positive frequency that's uplifting those people, then I feel like, you know, I've done my job, so to speak.
With the technology that we can look at now, that we can physically go out there and touch from the ancients, certainly Giza, you know, comes to mind first. Did we build that? I mean, it seems absolutely impossible and preposterous. I have proposed many, many times that the pyramids were already there. When Egypt rose, the pyramids were already there. You know, that's why they never built any, you know, that's it. You know, did we have a hand in that, or was that just an Atlantean or possibly even ET assisted structure?
So you don't believe that, what was his name, Joseph, just built them for games?
Who's that? Ben Carson said that today? Oh,
yeah,
man,
I guess I should make him.
Yeah, that was pretty tasty, wasn't it? Yeah.
But,
Joseph.
you know, it's it's hard to fathom exactly how something so massive could have been built. To me, it's still related in a sense to the fact that they are built out of stone, which is going to last longer than anything else that we know of at this time. And yet, on the other hand, they don't seem to contain any technology that would make us believe that they have some, major ulterior purpose that we don't know of. So, I am not going to really venture a guess as to exactly how or who built them. But I kind of lean towards the fact that I think they just had a lot of slaves at that time and a lot of time on their hands. And they were building from memories, from things that had existed that meant a tremendous amount to them. And so it was just a vast project, that they were able to put together.
Well, I assembled...
I could be totally wrong.
Well, we all could be totally wrong. I had assembled a timeline. I've worked on it for years, but I assembled a timeline for my own education a few months ago, and I was just like, you know what, I'm going to do this and put it together. And I started looking at this, and all of the what Egyptologists and the historians of Egypt are going to tell you how it happened and when, that this massive building period, the Red Pyramid, the Step Pyramid, the Great Pyramid, there was, literally dozens were built in the span of about 50 years. Now, I was going to start naming names. For them to go and build the Red Pyramid and the Step Pyramid and in different locations with these huge building crews, there wasn't that kind of population there, and I don't know how that motivation came. They said, they weren't slaves. Well, okay, but you still have to have population growing food. You still have to have population doing other things. Everybody could not have been building one pyramid after they finish one and they just go to another site. All of that, it had to get quarried. It had to get built. It had to get carved. It had to get it designed. And that, I just think they've got it completely backwards. Completely. I think the Great Pyramid was already there. All of the other pyramids, and especially when you look at the examples of the Red Pyramid, that those were built to replicate what was already there. The Great Pyramid was their example. The Red Pyramid kept falling in on top of itself and, other pyramids, and they couldn't quite get it right. They were trying to duplicate what was already there. That's my own opinion, but it's the only thing that makes sense. There's no way to do all of those constructions all over, covering that much land geographically and moving these armies of construction workers. I think they've got it completely backwards.
I think you're right. I think it's a span of a lot longer history than what, in 50 years. I mean, there's buildings in Europe that took 200 or 300 years to build just because of the fact that they were so, large and involved in the architecture and the structure of them, a lot of the cathedrals. And so to build all those pyramids in 50 years, that doesn't make much sense.
Yeah. Notre Dame wasn't built overnight, folks. And that took forever. But yet the Great Pyramid was built in 20 years. And then you have the Sun Pyramid down in Mexico City. That took 150 years to build. And it's not as big as the Great Pyramid. Let's go to the phones. They came and went. Phone lines are open, 323-825-5045. And the caller that just called in, when you call back, I'll put you at the front of the line. 323-825-5045. There was a gravel pit. This is what's fascinating to me. There was a gravel pit, a quarry in France, dug into the ground. And if you take the Great Pyramid, right, and you tip it upside down, it would fit inside of this hole, this quarry. All right, are you picturing that? Do you understand what I'm saying? And all they did, they filled it full of rocks. That's all they did. They didn't build anything. They didn't design anything. They just filled it full of garbage. It took 12 years. And they didn't do anything but fill the hole up full of dirt and rocks. But yet you went the opposite direction, 4,000 years ago built the pyramids. Imagine. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Say hi to Doug Taylor. Who's calling? You're live right now. Okay. I
don't hear anybody.
Yeah. They're, hey, you know what? It's just, I'll bring them in as they come in. And so there you go. But, yeah, isn't that fascinating? So they want us to believe that it was built in 20 years, 4.5 million, rocks and red granite and 50-ton this and 70-ton that and leveled a limestone block in order to build all of that when the rest of the world was, Stone Age man. But somehow the Egyptians were able to know what true north was and knew how to quarry and knew how to transport stones and knew about advanced mathematics and architecture, and were able to support these stones and not only that, but build it 8-sided, and on top of that, just like make it earthquake proof so it would stand for eternity. It looks the same now as it did then. It hasn't changed, and
it's got all those inner structures, all of the various
tunnels
and little places where, who knows what goes on or what went on at that time.
If you think about it, they in your mind's eye, okay, I'm going to try to bring this call in again. Let's try this again. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Say hi to Doug Taylor. Who's calling?
My name's Greg.
Hi, Greg. How are you?
I'm doing fine. I was just calling. I hear you talking about all the technology and the stuff that may have with the Atlanteans and everything. But question I was trying to ask was that here we got all these structures, pyramids, Göbekli Tepe, and all the ancients and stuff that we have are showing, but we can't find no technology or the tools that they built with.
It's a great point. Yes.
So what I was going to ask is that could it be a possibility that we was the advanced people at that time, and maybe aliens had come before, and maybe they had beaten us back, took all our tools away, and it took us this long to recover or get to the point of where we are now.
That's a great question, Greg. Yeah, and Greg, let me ask you, are you saying that it was almost a punishment, or they didn't want us to progress, so they took that knowledge away?
I think they did. My feelings was I didn't want. We may have been already out in space. We may already have been travelers, and then they knocked us back. And
I think he's got a. Sorry, yeah, I'm thinking that he's got a really good point there.
Yes, he does.
And the point is kind of what we've been talking about is that if you think about Atlantis, if you think about the advanced technology that could have been, the basic structure of civilizations of that nature, that's in the past. So, there's no reason why we couldn't have been, and I believe we have been, much more advanced, both functioning as a means of traveling from other star systems and having come to this planet for various reasons and, getting connected and caught up in the so-called downfall of these various civilizations. And so, yeah, the people that are on this planet right now have been star travelers, I think, to a great extent.
Well, that's cool.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I believe it. Now, my wife, Serena, just gave me this note that I have to read. It says they use sound frequency to move the stones. So, she's really into the concept that, and if you read into it, you'll find that there is a unique way of utilizing the vibrations of sound to both break various rocks off of quarries and different methods that have been used. So, there's things that we just simply aren't aware of at the present time that no doubt were well known and were through the eons of time have been lost. I mean, it's the same thing with, being a carpenter today and with what I do, building custom homes. We don't have the knowledge of how they built the cathedrals over in England and Europe. It's been lost just in that short period of time, a couple hundred years. It's just not there anymore. And so I think that's just an example of how easy it is to lose touch with something that at the time was these vast pools of knowledge that everybody was sharing.
Well, Serena actually brings up a great point. I can tell you how they didn't transport the stones. They didn't put 70-ton red granite blocks on a boat. No, that didn't happen. They didn't drag 70-ton red granite blocks 500 miles across the desert. They didn't do that. Way. Yeah, exactly. So I can tell you how they didn't do it. So then how did they do it? And when you look at, Serena brings up an amazing point. When you look at what's going on down in Bolivia and in Peru, and you look at Baalbek in Lebanon, or you look at Stonehenge, and you look at the size of those stones, and we couldn't do it today. There is no semi-truck that you're going to throw a 70-ton block of red granite on and drive. And they certainly didn't have that back then. So how did they do it? You've got to go to another form of technology, and you got to let your mind go. Did they have
something that's lost? Kind of like the Coral Castle down in Florida. I mean, the individual who built all of those various structures by himself.
Right.
And nobody really knows how he did it, but he knows how. So
yeah, the Coral Castle. The Coral Castle.
Coral Castle, yeah.
Yeah, and
that's cool.
Yeah, exactly. And so do we go to a sound or resonance or, Merlin with the magic staff? I don't know. But
I kind of like that.
Yeah, I do too, actually. and is there something there that they knew about? Because when you look at those walls in Peru, and you look across the valley, this mountainous area, not a flat desert like in Egypt, but I'm talking about mountains. And the quarry is 3 mountains away, right? And they got and those 100-ton blocks got from there to here. Somebody help me, please. I can tell you how they didn't do it. They didn't drive them. So maybe they flew them. I don't know. Maybe they floated them. I don't know. But they didn't drag them. They didn't roll them. And that's the mind-boggling thing. And we just have forgotten all of it. It's all forgotten. We don't know. I don't know if you know this, Doug and Greg. Check this out. When the Persians arrived in Egypt, right? Cleopatra's done. Mark Antony, Rome comes in, takes over. Everybody's suddenly around. Let's just call it 0. Okay, 0 AD. Right there.
Right.
At that point, everybody forgot everything about Egypt. They forgot about the magic. They forgot about the language. They forgot to read hieroglyphics. Cleopatra was Greek. And so everything about Egypt was gone. And in just a matter of decades, a couple of hundred Persians arrive, and they show up. And they go, what are those? Looking at the pyramids. By that, the Sphinx is buried in sand. And they're, what is that? Oh, we don't know. Well, who built them? Don't know. What are they for? Don't have a clue, but they look nice, don't they? Look pretty good. And then and Napoleon shows up. He rolls in, and he's heard about Egypt, right? And he rolls in, and he's going around. He's asking everybody, "What is this? What? I don't know." Yep. Well, what were they? I don't know. It's amazing how that. And you look at the Mayan culture, and we had to go and decipher all of that. If we didn't have the Rosetta Stone, we wouldn't know anything. It's just amazing how that amnesia kicks in instantly. Pretty soon, Doug, we'll forget how we built In-N-Out Burger. It'll be like, what is that? I don't know. It's
amnesia is a fantastic word to describe it, because in a sense it's like a psychic amnesia, because we're talking about the concept that our consciousness has a vast history of civilizations that we've been a part of in previous lifetimes that we don't have the memories from. So in a sense, we have this psychic amnesia, and a lot of it is because we don't want to remember. We want to remember the good parts, of course, but the downfalls, the destruction, the sinking, those are such traumatic things that's kind of the psychic amnesia, and that's where you have to start, in a sense, all over again, like Greg was talking about, from scratch to a certain extent, so you can begin that development again. And that's kind of what Atlantis was originally, as a means of bringing people together that needed to go through this process of re-educating themselves so they could live in a more positive way, and specifically to be able to develop individuals who had been traveling in other star systems and had gotten caught up in a lot of this physical vibration, so that they became trapped again into lower and lower and more negative states. Just like I talked about my own warring history. I used to have dreams all the time where I'd be fighting and battling people, and became aware that I had been a pirate. I had had vivid experiences of being involved in very, very negative activities. And the awareness of those things was really a tremendous benefit to me as I became aware of, what I could do now in a positive way to see the lesson that I gained from having done those things.
I want to talk to you. I want to talk more about your past life experiences. And Greg, I want to thank you for the phone call. Very insightful. First-time caller, too.
Well, I really appreciate it.
Hey, Greg, I want you to write Rita right now, Rita at jimmychurchradio.com, and give her your T-shirt size and your address, and we'll send you out a T-shirt. And I want to remind everybody, we had some issues with our shipper last week, and everything that didn't ship last week is shipping tomorrow. Everybody be patient. And Greg, you'll be part of that shipment if you write Rita right now. Thank you for the phone call.
All right, I appreciate it.
Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thanks, Greg.
Yeah, let's take our last break, Doug. And when we come back, it's one of the most fascinating things is past lives, and I've got my own little couple of things here and there too I want to talk to you about, and we'll do that, and we'll also take some more calls right after this short break. This is Fade to Black tonight. Douglas Taylor is right here. It is an all Atlantis evening. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Caller, if you're on hold, you just stay right there. We'll take your call next. Fade to Black, bespoke radio for the masses. Doug Taylor, Atlantis, when we come back.
Vivica Fox here, and you are listening to my boy, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.
But listening to Jimmy Church will.
All right, you Fadernauts, Studio Dome has done it once again. A new Studio Dome Fadernaut special. Introducing the Studio Dome Boom Box Bluetooth speaker. It's got a rear-firing bass film subwoofer and dual 52mm main speakers. You'll never listen to your tablet or cell phone speakers again. Just click on the Studio Dome banner, use the promo code Jimmy, and you'll get the SBB for $49 and free shipping. And get a Buddy 4-port USB charger for free. That's a $19.99 value right there. And they'll throw in a Buddy in the box. It's the best deal on the net anywhere. Just go to jimmychurchradio.com, click on the Studio Dome banner, enter the promo code Jimmy. Go Beckley Teppy.
Erica, Brittany, Gabby, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
It's not a lifestyle we chose. We were born this way. KGRARadio.com.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Welcome back to Faded Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Doug Taylor is with this fascinating conversation. Atlantis, consciousness, us, you. More with Doug in just a second. Let's go to the phones. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Say hi to Doug Taylor.
Hello, Doug. My name is Gregory, calling from Tiruvannamalai, South India. My question is about direct experience versus all the books that we've all read. There's amazing channels on this world, Solanta King, Sandra Walter, Carolyn Corey. They're bringing in information that is unbelievably detailed, extends for eons and eons of time, and yet I'm dependent on reading their crap. I can't get it myself unless I meditate more and more and more. Any comments on how to get this stuff out of our own brain rather than out of books?
Oh, great question. There you go.
Sure. Yeah. There's a statement that probably comes from India, but I'm not quite sure who made the statement. But it was basically, when the student is ready, the master will appear. So I think that what I mean by that is that, you know, we all are in such a fast-paced society. You know, it's like, I want to have everything right now. And when you think about the process of evolution, it's a long, drawn-out process. It can happen quite rapidly depending on the individual's preconditioning. So in other words, if we've had in the spiritual world before we incarnated into this physical body, a preconditioning, an educational curriculum that we set up, when we come in, we're going to be intuitively guided to certain books. Now, those books you're going to read might give you a certain amount of information, but it doesn't really mean anything unless you can make it a part of yourself. So as you begin to realize that you are a transceiving device, your mind is functioning exactly like a television, and that you can begin to learn how to tune into these things just exactly the way that electronic devices work, then eventually you'll see that whenever you're scanning the words, what you're really doing is you're tuning your mind into the frequency that was originally established into that particular teaching or that book. Just like when I'm doing a painting, that painting is carrying a certain frequency. So if somebody can tune into that frequency and lift themselves up and feel the energy that went into it, then they're aligning themselves on that level. But it has to go through the process of evolution. So that's just so critical to it. And evolution can be very slow at times. It depends on each one of us and what we've set up and what we've been preconditioned with before we came into this physical body.
Hey, Greg, you said
I believe you're saying that we can only perceive to the level of our development of consciousness, right?
Well, we can only perceive what we've been preconditioned to be able to understand. So in other words, depending on what the future is established for us, what we have developed, then that's how we're going to be able to perceive our life.
It's amazing what has come through on this planet. 20 and 30 years ago, light healing things that almost still today no one can understand. And so, I mean, there's people living on all levels of time, in the advanced future or even in the past, right here, right now on this planet. Quite amazing, huh?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Hey, Greg, you said you were Hey, Greg, you said you were calling from South India. What city?
South India, Tiruvannamalai. I'm looking at a 1,200,000-year-old mountain right in front of me called Arunachala. It's a very, very sacred place. Tons of meditators here from around the world. Kundalini is a common thing. It's one of the earth blessings.
Thank you so much for the call.
All right, enjoy. Good work you're doing. Keep it up.
Thank you so much, Greg.
Thanks, Greg.
Wow. That's
India.
Amazing. South India coming in tonight. And you know what? You know what's great about that? And I want you to think about that for a second, Doug. Somebody halfway around the planet is literally halfway around the globe is focused in listening to you and was so compelled that they had to call in and speak to you directly. And how amazing is that technology has brought us together like that? Doesn't that just make you feel just like funny?
That's phenomenal. Yeah. It's really it's a mind-boggling experience. You know, for me right now, it has to do with the fact that, you know, I usually get up at like 5:30 in the morning to go to work. And so I probably burned out about half an hour ago. I'm still trying to maintain some sort of focus here because it's such an important subject. And I appreciate so much, you know, the fact that you've been able to communicate and put me on your program. And I think your attitude is so fantastic. And the people that are calling in are right in there, you know. So, yeah, I'm kind of on the fading out.
No, I'll help you. I'll help you fade in. Why is it when I don't know? I fully am conscious about reincarnation, and my mom always spoke to me about that since I was, 2 years old, and she was a big Edgar Cayce guy and was full on into all of this, and that's what I was taught growing up. But I don't officially know. But when I do dream or go into that zone, I am never a general, a king leading into battle or nobility or somebody special. When I go into that zone, I'm like a cook, or I'm a bum on the side of the street rolling around in the mud. I am never something special. Why is that? Am I just dreaming there?
Yeah, I think what you could look at is you got to kind of look at your present life and what you're doing, and you're involved. Now you're involved in doing a radio show that's reaching people, all the way over in India, across the planet. And so there's got to be some sort of leadership roles that you've been in before, or you wouldn't be, have your own radio show, so to speak, and be doing what you're doing. So sometimes you just have to connect the dots and kind of see in your present life, what is it that you can kind of follow the patterns and see what the relationship is from the past. And that's really a fascinating way to do it.
So you're just saying I just worked my way out of it. I worked my way out of the mud. It's an interesting way to look at it. Now, you've mentioned it a couple of times tonight. You mentioned pirates, and you were bloodletting, apparently.
I can give you an incredible experience that I had that I'll never forget it. It was a dream state. But it was one of those where it was definitely a past life association that came directly in this dream. It was so vivid. But I was crawling up on the side of the ship, and kind of stealing my way up, got over the edge, and I saw somebody on watch who was sitting there, and I came up behind him, And as horrible as, you can imagine, I took a knife and I slit his throat. Now, what happened in this dream, because I was being shown what is really happening when you do an activity like that, it was I felt the frequency. I felt what this was like psychically to go and actually kill somebody. Because at the time when I was the pirate, I'm sure I was just trying to do whatever I was doing to steal something and make my life better in a physical way, get some, steal some money or whatever it was I was trying to do. And yet, what we talk about karma, but there was the frequency that went directly into my psychic was so foul. It was like somebody screeching the brakes or scratching the chalkboard, beyond, times 1,000 or 1,000,000. And so that's the energy, the frequency that went directly into my psychic, where now I am distorted. My psychic is distorted with that energy. And so I have to go back now, and I'm being helped by these various teachers on these inner worlds that help us in our dream states, especially, to recognize these things and to work them out so that they're no longer influencing us, in the same way that they have been for who knows how many thousands of years. So it's a pretty incredible thing.
Were you, at that moment, were you the opposite? It sounds like it's the opposite of who I know now, the Doug Taylor that I know today. It's the exact opposite guy. Is that who you, just ruthless, I don't want to say self-centered, but you didn't care about other lives.
I might cut your throat if I had a lot of riches to gain from it. I don't know. No, just kidding. No, it's not that far off sometimes, you think about it, you go, no, I could never do anything like that. You see people who have murdered people and done things, they're just not, their mind is just completely in this distorted mentality to where they're living in kind of like this weird dream state. And so they're acting out things that are totally from their past, and they don't have any understanding of why. So now I know about why I shouldn't do that. Right. At the time when I was that pirate, I was just, I was an ignorant person, and I was doing what I had basically evolved into at that particular lifetime. And it was a horrible, horrible thing that just added karma and lowered my energy field to a point to where I was more connected to the physical realm and had to go back and, in a sense, work out that horrible negative frequency within my psychic by understanding where it came from and how I'm now not going to ever do that again. So, yeah, no, I'm not going to cut your throat.
How yeah, let's hope not. How does it work? The pirate past life, right? That period, and here you are today. Were there a couple of other lives in between that you knew about, or how does it work?
For me, I think what you can look at is all of the things that are going on in your life right now. There are clues to all of your past lives. It's just is very hard to be able to kind of pick the clues up until you really start putting your consciousness into it. And plus we need help. But, okay, just take an example. It might be kind of hard to kind of see this in the way that I do, because to me it became so natural. Right. But all the tool bags that I wear at work, I got the hammer, I got, I have all of these different things, and they're like weapons. So I'm walking around and not knowing it, growing up in construction, I always enjoyed it. But we were all out there, in the war, in the battlefield, being conquistadors, being all of these various warrior characters. And that was a huge part of my mentality that I had to really see. And it's a huge part of the mentality of our planet as a whole. So it's important to understand how to break yourself away from that. But, just those tools and all the various elements represented the swords and all the negative things that I used to harm people in the past, although now I was building a structure with it. But still, it's that energy that's going into it that you have to recognize.
Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Say hi to Doug Taylor. Who's calling?
Hi, Doug and Jimmy. This is Jim from New York.
Hi, Jim.
Hi, Jim. Nice to meet you.
Hi. Yeah, I just wanted to tell you, I had a meditative experience that didn't figure it out, maybe you could put some insight on it. It freaked me out. I haven't meditated since then, but I probably should get over it and try it over. But back in the 80s, I was meditating, and one day about 25 years ago, I decided to put it to the test, so to speak, and do something somewhat dangerous. But what I did was I went out into the woods and climbed it, and I at dusk, and I was going to climb this. I climbed this big pine tree as high as I could at dusk, and then I told myself, I'm going to meditate, and when it gets dark, I'm going to climb down the tree as fast as I can, and see if I'm able to do it and whatever, and how well I do it, and without hurting myself. So, I have had good luck meditating just as far as in the past, just as far as able to sleep good and not move, and use it as an alarm clock and wake up, tell myself to wake up without an alarm clock at 6 a.m. and it would work. I'd wake up at 2 seconds before. I'd still set the alarm just in case, but I'd wake up 3 seconds or 5 seconds before the alarm went off. Well, I was in the tree and I meditated. I got about 25 feet up and I meditated for like half an hour, and then a thought came to me: "You're ready." So I'm like, "Wow, okay, I must be ready then to do it." And it was dark enough to where you couldn't see your hand 2 feet in front of you. So I reached over with my left hand and I grabbed the branch that I was on. And the next thing I know, I'm hanging on the lowest branch, which is like a foot or so off the ground. You had to jump up to get it, grab it to climb the tree.
Right.
And I'm hanging from the branch, and I'm like, how did I get here? And I don't remember climbing down and getting a foothold and grabbing the next branch and all this. And it literally took us 1 second. And when I let go and when I hit the ground, I'm like, gee, how did,
Yeah, right. So
what happened? Yeah. And all of a sudden this thought came to me out of nowhere. And then what it said was, you slithered backwards down it like a snake. And I'm like, wow, where did that come from?
And so you want to know what that means?
Well, the only thing I could figure out was years later, I found out that all humans have an R complex, which is a reptilian. So I'm thinking maybe it was that and it took over or something. I don't know.
It's interesting. What do you think about that, Doug? Thank you for the call, Jim.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know about going up a tree and meditating. Never thought about trying that myself, but as far as his concept of how he got back down, I don't really have much to say about that. I just don't understand. I can't imagine, as far as the only thing that I can say is that if you look into the history of Atlantis, if we go back to this, and we go into the snake concept of snakes, there were snake cults in Atlantis, and it was these snake cults that began to flourish and actually were the individuals who became the exponents of the downfall of Atlantis.
Right.
So instead of seeing the snake as the sine wave, the energy principle of the up and down movement of energy, they began to worship the snake in the sense of relationship to the physical world, and it tore them away from the spiritual teachings of Atlantis. So that's the only relationship that I can think of with a snake, and it doesn't necessarily apply to anything that he was talking about. I'm not quite sure, how you could go down the tree like that. But it's probably something that a lot of us are not aware of, is that we have these various elements within our psychic, and that we were part of a lot of these different cults that were actually very negatively biased in what they were trying to do.
When we end this life, and your current state, and your eyes close and it's done. Are you immediately reincarnated with a child being born somewhere else on Earth? Their eyes pop open, and that is you. Is that how it occurs? Do you just move from one to the other?
No, it would be different for everybody. It would be dependent on how much understanding you had about the processes that you were going through in consciousness. And one of the things that a couple people brought up was the concept of meditation. Now, I've meditated a little bit, but that's not so much what I try to focus on. It's more of being aware of your thoughts all the time. And so I used to do that with my dream states, and I found that I could become aware of myself when I was dreaming, and what has been known as lucid dreaming. And it's a very interesting experience where you actually are aware enough of your thoughts all the time that a lot of these different attributes that would throw you in one direction or another don't happen, so you can kind of keep your focus and your balance going in a forward direction. But each person is going to have an experience that is going to be completely unique to their own specific spiritual development and their evolution. And some people may just incarnate right back into a physical body, but that's not what you want to do, because that means that you're not gaining the lessons that you can learn on the other side, which is so, so important and so critical, because that's where you really see from a much larger perspective of what you are and who you are, and so what you need to do to come back and work out certain blocks and negative aspects of your own personality.
I want to thank you, Doug, for coming on tonight. It was an absolutely fascinating conversation. I just brought on our producer, Les. Les, say hi to Doug. Doug, say hi to Les.
Hi, Les. How you doing?
Oh, great. It's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Taylor. Thank you very much for being on tonight. We had a great time talking about everything in the sandbox tonight.
Well, it was a pleasure for me also. I just wish I had a little bit more energy to keep myself focused here, but that's part of my own life as a 61-year-old carpenter.
Well, wait till I get you on Coast to Coast, and I get you until 3 o'clock in the morning.
I know I've been on Coast to Coast before, but I'd rather do it when like on a Saturday night.
Yeah, exactly. I won't be that nice. Thank you, Doug. Yep. And we'll be seeing you soon. The website is solicjourneys.com. And he'll be speaking, of course, at the Conscious Life Expo in February. And then you're going over to Glastonbury. You're going to be at the Glastonbury.
Yeah, we're going over to Glastonbury. We're going to, I really actually enjoy doing a multimedia presentation, because I have a lot of animations and a lot of stuff that kind of helps me to put a presentation together in a much more positive way. So, yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun.
So everybody over in the UK, our great friends over in the UK, that will be July 2016. It's just a mere 6-7 months away. It's the Glastonbury Symposium. And so you can go and check it out at the Glastonbury Symposium.co.uk. Get all your information and tickets and info there. But Doug will be heading over. I assume you're taking Serena, and you guys are going to have a great time.
She's taking me, yeah.
Yeah, exactly right. I got that backwards. Give my best to Serena, and we'll talk to you guys. Thank you so much, Doug.
Will do. Thank you.
Doug Taylor. Unbelievable conversation tonight, and a great week, huh, Les?
Absolutely, sir. How are you doing, Jimmy?
I'm doing.
Are you feeling any better?
Well, I'm drug-free. That's the good part. But I still feel like I was punched by Mike Tyson. It's really weird. My, it's traumatic. But enough about me. I'm doing great. I have no complaints. Life can be a whole lot worse. Okay, so I passed a couple of kidney stones. What's the big deal? Man.
That's true.
Man up, man. Nut it up. Nut it up. So. It's the truth, man. You know what's funny about kidney stones? The people that have never had them, right? What's the big deal? The people that have had them They will look at you dead in the eye and go, dude, I felt like I was dying. They get it. They know, right? And unless you've had them, it's unfrigging believable. Your body freaks out. And it goes from the top of your forehead to the tips of your toes. It is an incredible thing. I don't know what it's like to fall down a flight of stairs, but I'd rather do that. I'd rather do that. I'd rather take that outcome. I'd rather step in front of a moving bus than go through that whatever.
I hear you.
And take what comes, man. Take what comes. Evel Knievel going over the fountains at Caesar's Palace and breaking 80 bones. It's nothing. I'd rather do that. I'd rather do that than go through kidney stones.
Well, I am blessed the fact that I have not had them, knock on wood, and I would never want to be in the position you were in and have been in, sir. I more power to you that you can even get through something like that. And you're the man, Jimmy. You are the man.
It's just, hey, it's the cards that you're dealt. You got to do it. That's it.
Yeah.
You can't cry about it.
Absolutely.
But let me ask you, what was your favorite night this week? Was it Annie Jacobson and Foster Gamble? Bob Fletcher last night was absolutely amazing. And then tonight we roll in with Doug Taylor. Pretty amazing week. And you think about last week, how great that was, and then we go and we do this week. What was your favorite night?
My favorite night this week, I would have to say Bob Fletcher was interesting. I had heard him on other shows before, but never to the degree that I had heard him before on this show, because they always have a little bit more freedom on this show than they do other shows.
Right.
But I have to say Annie Jacobson and Foster Gamble. That was my favorite night this week.
Yeah, that was a pretty good night. I
always love Annie. Annie, she's such a smart lady. I get so much information from her, and she's such a great person. I really enjoy her.
She scares the crap out of me. That's what
Doesn't she, though?
Yeah, she does. She does. She's holding back, and there's just thing. It's funny because you're sitting there and you're talking. She goes, "You know what? I'm going to tell you something that's really going to freak you out." And I'm like, okay, here it comes, And that's the thing about Annie. Whether it's Area 51 or Project Paperclip or this DARPA stuff, she goes where I would want to go, but I only talk about it. She actually goes out and gets it done. And I know she's sitting on a wealth of knowledge that is just frightening, and she knows things. Yeah, you're right.
Dude, I really wonder sometimes if she says just enough to get by, but there's some stuff she just can't say, or she knows she's going to disappear.
Oh, that's the truth. That's 100% the truth. Yeah, there's only so far that she can go. So, yeah,
scary.
Absolutely. So, we've got a great week lined up. I cannot wait to announce what we have going on next week. You probably know. Don't say anything. Don't say anything.
Give us a hint. Give us a hint.
Nope, can't do it. Not going to do it.
You're killing me, Jimmy. You're killing me.
I'm not going to do it. Take us out of here, Les.
All right, brother. First, Jimmy would like to thank all the new callers and Fader Not Too Phone Home Night. Special thanks to Douglas Taylor. Fade Black executive producer is Rita Camurian. Special thanks to LJ3, that's me, Renee, Jonas, Mark, and Dennis. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vito, and Mark D. Kovar. Fading by Dale, webmaster is Drew, the Geek. Music is by Doug Aldrich. Intro by Spaceboy. See him at spaceboymusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network and syndicated on KGRA. And with that for the week, Jimmy and I are out of here.
Thank you so much, Les. Have a great, safe weekend.
All right, sir.
This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2015 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow us on Twitter at JChurchRadio. I want everybody to be safe. Go Beckley Tappy.